Have you ever really stopped to think about it? We spend so much of our lives earning it, saving it, spending it. We worry about it, dream about it. But why do we use these pieces of paper or numbers on a screen to get what we need and want? It's a simple question, but the answer goes deep into what it means to be human. Here's the thing. Money isn't just about coins and bills. It's an idea. It's a promise we all agree to believe in. Think about a time before money existed. People used to barter. If you had extra corn and your neighbor had a good fishing net, you might trade. You give them corn, they give you a net. Sounds fair, right? But what if your neighbor didn't need corn? What if they needed wood and you only had corn? Then you'd have a problem. You'd have to find someone with wood who needed corn and also someone with a fishing net who wanted wood. It gets complicated fast. This is called the double coincidence of wants, and it's a huge hassle. So, people needed something easier, something everyone would accept as valuable, no matter what they personally needed at that exact moment, something that could be traded for anything else. This is where money came in. At first, it wasn't always paper or metal. Sometimes it was salt, or special shells, or even large stones. What mattered was that everyone in that community agreed it had value. It became a universal IOU, a ticket that said, I have given something valuable to someone else, and now I can claim something valuable in return. Money is like a shared language. Imagine trying to talk to someone if you both spoke totally different languages, and you didn't have a translator. It would be hard to share ideas, to cooperate. Money acts like that translator for our work and our desires. It allows us to trade our time, our skills, our effort, for something else, even if the person who wants our skill doesn't have exactly what we need right then. It smooths out all those complicated trades and makes life flow. Consider a simple, everyday example. You go to a store, pick up a new video game. You don't trade your old skateboard for it directly. Instead, you hand over some money. That money represents all the work your parents did, or maybe a chore you completed, or a gift you received. It's a token of stored value. The store accepts it because they know they can use that same money to pay their rent, buy more games, or pay their employees. It's a chain of trust, an agreement among many people. Money isn't just about getting stuff, though. It's also about how we organize ourselves. It helps us decide what we value as a society. If people are willing to pay a lot for a certain skill, like coding a new app, that skill becomes highly valued. Money helps us move resources to where they're needed most, or at least where people are willing to pay for them. So, why do we use money? It's not because we're forced to. Not really. We use it because it makes our complex world simpler. It allows us to cooperate on a massive scale, far beyond what any single person could do alone. It's a fundamental agreement, a quiet promise we make to each other, so that we can build, create, and share. It's a tool, a way for our energies and efforts to connect across time and distance, letting us imagine and build a future together. It reflects our collective belief in each other, and in the idea that our work matters. Have you ever stopped to think about money? Not just the coins in your pocket or the numbers on a screen, but what money really is. We use it every day, buy things with it, save it, but where did this powerful idea even come from? It wasn't always here. For a very long time, people lived without anything like cash. Imagine a world before money. If you had extra berries and needed a new stone tool, you'd have to find someone with a tool who also wanted berries. This was called bartering. You swap what you have for what you need. Sounds simple, right? But here's the problem. What if the toolmaker didn't want berries? What if they needed, say, fish? Then you'd have to find someone with fish who wanted berries and then convince that person to trade with the toolmaker for you. It got messy fast. This double coincidence of wants made life hard. Trading was slow and often didn't work out. So people needed something better. Something that everyone would accept even if they didn't immediately need it. Something easy to carry, divide, and store. Over thousands of years, different societies tried different things. They used cowrie shells, large stones with holes, salt blocks, even feathers or special grains. These weren't money as we know it, but they were steps towards it. The key was that a group of people, a whole community, agreed that these items had value. They might not need the salt for cooking right then, but they knew someone else would, and they could trade it later for something they wanted. Think of it like this. Imagine your school has a reward system. Maybe good behavior or good grades earn you special star stickers. At first, these stickers are just stickers. But then, the school says, 5-star stickers can get you an extra 10 minutes of recess. Or 10 stickers can get you a homework pass. Suddenly, those stickers aren't just paper anymore. They have value because everyone agrees. They do. They become a way to trade your good behavior for something you want. You don't eat the sticker, right? But you know you can trade it. That's how money started. It wasn't about gold or silver at first. It was about trust. It was an agreement, a shared story we all believed in. The salt wasn't valuable because it was shiny. It was valuable because everyone agreed it was. The shells weren't valuable because they tasted good. They were valuable because everyone knew they could trade them for something else. Money is really just a symbol, a promise. It's a placeholder for value, a way to move value around without having to drag actual berries or tools everywhere. So, the next time you see money, remember its humble beginnings. It's not just metal or paper. It's a silent, ancient agreement. It's a deep belief that has allowed humans to cooperate and build incredibly complex societies, all because we decided to trust a shared idea, a symbol, to represent our hard work and our wants. It's a powerful idea, born from the simple need to make trading easier, and it still shapes our lives in ways we might not even realize. Imagine for a moment that the money in your pocket wasn't metal coins or paper bills. What if it was something you could find on a beach? Something beautiful and smooth. This might sound strange, but for thousands of years, across many parts of the world, shells were exactly like our dollars and euros are today. Here's the thing. People used small, shiny cowrie shells as currency. They weren't just pretty objects. They were incredibly valuable. Think about it. Why would a simple shell become so important? Well, for one, cowrie shells are naturally beautiful. They have a certain glow, a smoothness that feels good to touch. But more than that, they were durable. They didn't rot or easily break apart like food or plants. You could save them, carry them, and pass them on for years without them losing their shape. But the biggest reason they became money was their scarcity in certain places. Not just any shell would do. Specific types of cowrie shells, often found in tropical oceans, were highly prized. If you lived far from the coast, these shells were hard to get. The further inland you went, the rarer and more valuable they became. So, a few shells could buy you a lot. Food, tools, clothing, even land. People accepted them because everyone else did. There was a shared agreement, a trust, that these shells held value. This shared belief is key to how any money works, even today. It's a bit like how some rare trading cards or limited edition sneakers become super valuable to us now. A basic card might be worth nothing. But a rare, shiny card that everyone wants? People will pay a lot for it. It's not that the card itself can do anything magical. It's just a piece of paper. But its value comes from how many people want it and how few of them exist. People agree it's special, and that agreement makes it valuable. Cowrie shells work the same way. Their natural beauty and rarity, combined with a community's shared belief, gave them their power. This ancient idea of money made from shells helps us see something deep about our own world. Money, in any form, is really just a story we all agree to believe. Whether it's a shell, a piece of paper, or numbers on a screen, its power comes from our shared trust. The shells tell us that money isn't just about what something is made of, but what we, as humans, decide it is worth. This belief, this agreement, is what truly gives money its strength, connecting us across time to those who once traded shiny shells for everything they needed. And in a quiet way, that ancient belief still shapes how we think about value and wealth today. Have you ever stopped to wonder why the thought of not having enough money can feel so scary? It's a feeling that seems to hum in the background of our lives. A quiet worry for some, a loud alarm for others. We talk about money all the time. But this deep fear of being poor, it goes way beyond just wanting a new phone or the latest sneakers. It's a feeling woven into us, stretching back thousands of years. Think about it this way. Money, as we know it, is a fairly new idea. For most of human history, there was no paper cash or bank accounts, but the need for what money gets you. That's ancient. Way back, if you didn't have enough to eat, or a safe place to sleep, or clothes to keep you warm, you might not survive. Being poor then meant facing real immediate dangers: hunger, cold, sickness without help, or being unprotected from threats. Your very life could be on the line. So, your brain learned to connect not enough resources with danger. And it wasn't just about survival. Humans are social creatures. We've always lived in groups, tribes, and communities. If you couldn't contribute, if you didn't have what was needed, you might be left out. You might not get a share of the hunt or a spot by the fire. Being excluded from the group was, in many ways, just as dangerous as facing the wild alone. So, the fear of not having enough became tied to the fear of being alone, of not belonging, of being vulnerable. This isn't just an old story. Our brains still carry echoes of these ancient worries. It's kind of like how a tiny baby chick, even if it's never seen a hawk, will flinch and try to hide if a shadow passes over it. That's an instinct, a survival program built in. In the same way, the fear of being poor is a deep-seated instinct for many of us. It's not always about logic. It's about a primal part of our brains sending off an alarm bell. So here's how it works in our modern lives. When we worry about money today, it's not just about paying bills. It's also about those ancient alarms ringing. It's the feeling that if we don't have enough, we might not be safe. We might not be able to care for ourselves or the people we love. We might not fit in. It's about losing control, about not being able to protect ourselves from the unknowns of the world. And that's why it matters to understand this. This deep fear isn't a weakness. It's a leftover from a time when having enough literally meant the difference between life and death, or being part of the group versus being alone. Recognizing this doesn't make the fear disappear, but it helps us see it for what it is: an old, powerful feeling rooted in our survival, trying to keep us safe in a world that's changed a lot, but still values security and belonging. It reminds us that our feelings about money run much deeper than we often think. Have you ever noticed how quiet people get when money comes up? It's almost like there's a secret rule we all follow, a rule that says money talk is off limits. You might feel a little awkward. Maybe you've seen adults quickly change the subject. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? Like money is something to hide, or something to be ashamed of. But here's the thing. Why does it feel that way? Money is just a tool. It's paper and coins, or numbers on a screen. So why does talking about it feel so personal? And why is it so often seen as rude? This isn't a new feeling. It's a really old one, actually. Think about people living long, long ago. In many ancient cultures, how much wealth someone had was closely tied to their power, their family, and their place in society. If you talked too much about your money, you might sound like you were boasting. That could make others feel jealous or angry, and feeling jealous could even be dangerous. So, it was safer to keep quiet. It was a way to protect yourself and your family. Also, some old beliefs connected money to greedy behavior. Some religions taught that caring too much about money was bad for your soul. It pulled you away from what was truly important. So, keeping quiet about wealth became a way to show you weren't too focused on earthly things. These ideas, these ways of thinking about money and talking about it, or not talking about it, got passed down from one generation to the next. It became a habit, a very deep habit, like a quiet agreement we all just know. Think about something else that feels very private, like your personal diary. You wouldn't just read your diary out loud to everyone, right? It holds your private thoughts, your feelings, your hopes, and your worries. Sharing it makes you feel very open and vulnerable. Money can be like that. It's connected to our dreams, like wanting to buy something special or needing to save for a future goal. But it's also connected to our worries, like not having enough for something important. When someone asks about your money, it can feel like they're asking about your deepest secrets, your struggles, or even your failures. It feels personal because money is so woven into our lives. It affects our comfort, our choices, and our opportunities. It can feel like we're being judged based on how much we have or don't have. So, we stay quiet. It's a way to protect that vulnerable part of ourselves. Is it truly rude to talk about money then? Or is it more about feeling exposed? Maybe it's not rudeness, but simply a deep, old feeling of wanting to keep parts of ourselves private. Understanding this helps us see that money isn't just numbers. It carries a lot of history, a lot of feelings, and a lot of our personal stories. And knowing that can help us be a little more understanding of why we all act so strangely when the topic comes up. Have you ever heard someone say that money is the root of all evil? Maybe you've seen it in movies or read it in a book. It's a very old idea, and it's one that has shaped how many people think and feel about money for a very long time. But what does it really mean? And is it true? When people say money is evil, they're often talking about the bad things they see happen because of it. Think about it. Arguments over inheritances, crimes committed for cash, people cheating others to get rich, or even wars started because powerful people want more land and resources, which means more money. These actions are clearly harmful, and they feel very wrong. So, it's easy to connect the money to the evil, like it's the cause. But here's the thing. Money itself is just a tool. It's a way for us to trade things, to store value, to make life easier in a lot of ways. It's like a hammer. A hammer isn't evil. You can use a hammer to build a beautiful house, to create something strong and safe for a family. Or, sadly, you could use that same hammer to break something, or even to hurt someone. Is the hammer evil? No. The hammer is just a tool. It's the person holding the hammer and what they choose to do with it that matters. For centuries, thinkers and religious leaders have warned against the love of money, not money itself. They pointed out how chasing wealth too much can make people forget about kindness, fairness, and helping others. They saw how greed, the intense, selfish desire for more than you need, could take over a person's heart. This isn't just an old idea, it's something we still see today. Someone might lie to get a raise, or a company might pollute a river to save money. These are choices born from greed, using money as the goal. So, when someone says money is evil, they're often really talking about human greed, human selfishness, or the bad choices people make when they prioritize money above everything else. They're talking about the dark side of human nature that money can sometimes bring out. It's not the paper or the coins or the numbers in a bank account that are bad. It's what people are willing to do or not do for those things. Imagine a powerful current of water, like a river. This river isn't good or bad. It just flows. You can use that river's power to create electricity for a whole city, bringing light and warmth to thousands of homes. Or, if you're not careful, that same river can flood and destroy everything in its path. Money is a bit like that river. It's a powerful force in our world, full of potential. It can be used to build hospitals, fund schools, feed the hungry, or create incredible art. But it can also be used to harm, to control, or to spread injustice. The real lesson here isn't that money is bad. It's that we, as humans, have a huge responsibility for how we use it. We are the ones who decide whether money helps build a better world or tears it down. It's about our choices, our values, and what we choose to put first in our lives. Money is a reflection of us, not the other way around. Have you ever felt a pressure inside you? A quiet hum of something you owe? Maybe you promised to help a friend, or you know you should clean your room, but you haven't done it yet. That feeling, that little weight in your stomach, is a tiny echo of what debt truly feels like. For thousands of years, humans have lived with debt. It's not just about money. Not really. It's about promises. It's about what you take from someone, or from the future, and what you're expected to give back. Think about it. The first time someone traded a basket of berries for a piece of animal hide, there was a promise. A promise that the exchange was fair, or that another exchange would follow. And if it wasn't fair, or if the promise was broken, that created a debt. In ancient times, this wasn't just a business deal. It was deeply personal. If you owed someone, you were tied to them. Your family might be tied to them. Entire communities were built on these webs of promises and obligations. If a farmer took a loan of grain to plant his fields, and then a flood ruined his harvest, he still owed that grain. But it wasn't just grain. It was his honor, his future, maybe even his children's freedom that could be on the line. It was a heavy, heavy burden. So, how does that ancient feeling connect to us right now in our modern world? Well, it's like a shadow that stretches across time. We still feel that inner pressure, that gut feeling when we owe something. It's the stress of a looming credit card bill, sure, but it's also the vague guilt of a task undone or the weight of a secret you're keeping. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been asked to keep a huge secret. Not a fun secret, but a serious one. Maybe you promised someone you wouldn't tell, and that promise feels enormous. Every time someone asks about the topic, you feel a little jolt, a little twitch in your gut. You walk around with that secret inside you, and even if no one else knows, you know. It's a weight, a constant hum in the background of your thoughts. That's a bit like ancient debt. It wasn't always a number on a scroll. It was an internal state, a bond that might feel like a chain. And sometimes, we feel debts that aren't even ours. Think about how we inherit things. Our family stories, their habits, even some of their problems. We can also inherit a kind of debt from history. It might be the consequences of past choices made by people long gone, choices that affect our environment, our society, or how different groups of people interact. We didn't create these situations, but we live with their effects. And sometimes, we feel the unspoken pressure to fix them, to make things right. It's a feeling of responsibility, a debt to the future, to make things better than they were. Understanding this deep, old feeling about debt helps us see that it's more than just money moving around. It's about human connection, about promises made and kept, or promises broken. It's about the very old idea of balance in the world. And realizing how deeply rooted these feelings are can help us understand why money and owing can feel so powerful, even today. It reminds us that our actions and our promises echo far beyond the present moment. Have you ever gotten some money, maybe a gift, and felt this strong pull to spend it right away, like it's burning a hole in your pocket? This isn't just about wanting new things. It's an old feeling, a whisper from times long past. Imagine living thousands of years ago. People didn't have banks or steady jobs. Food was found, not bought. If you caught a deer or found a patch of berries, how long would it last? Not long. It could spoil. Other animals might find it. Or maybe you wouldn't find food again for days. So, when ancient people found something valuable, the best plan was often to use it right then. They would eat the food, wear the new animal skin, or share it with their tribe. Trying to save things for too long didn't make much sense. There was no guarantee you'd have it later. This deep feeling of use it or lose it got built into our human experience. It wasn't about being irresponsible. It was about survival. It was a smart way to live when resources were always uncertain. Money, or what they used as money, often worked in a similar way. If you had extra tools or valuable shells, you might trade them for food right away. Food was life. This immediate thinking, this focus on the now, became a part of us. It's a powerful, quiet force that still guides some of our money choices today. Think about playing a video game. Maybe you're playing a survival game, and you find a rare potion or a powerful weapon. Your first thought might be to use it right away, especially if you're in a tough spot. You want that immediate advantage. Or it's less about survival and more about the quick feeling of reward. Imagine you have a bag of your favorite snacks. You know if you eat them all tonight, they'll be gone. But that first bite feels so good. Your brain gets a quick burst of happy chemicals. That immediate good feeling, that instant reward, is a powerful force. It's much harder to feel the reward of saving for something big in the far future, like a new game console. That reward feels distant and not as strong right now. Our brains are kind of wired to like those quick wins. So, when you feel that strong urge to spend everything the moment you get it, remember this. It's not just you. It's a whisper from our ancient past. It's a memory of a time when using something right away often meant staying alive. It's a quiet reminder that our brains still carry these old ways of thinking, even in a world where money works very differently. Understanding this ancient pull can help us see why we make certain choices with our money today. It helps us feel a little more connected to the long story of being human. It's a part of our shared past. Have you ever stopped to think about what you'd do if something unexpected happened? Like your phone suddenly breaking? Or a big project coming up in school that needs special supplies you didn't plan for? We often hope things will go smoothly, but life has a way of throwing curveballs. This is where a very old idea comes in, one that humans have carried with them for thousands of years: saving for a rainy day. What does that even mean? Simply put, it's about putting something aside today, not for right now, but for a moment in the future when you might really need it. It's like gathering firewood in the summer, not because you're cold then, but because you know winter is coming. It's about being ready. This idea isn't new. It's actually one of the oldest beliefs about money, even older than money itself. Think about ancient farming communities. When the harvest was good, people didn't eat all their grain at once. They had to store some of it. Why? Because they knew there would be times of drought, or pests, or long cold winters when no crops would grow. If they didn't save, they wouldn't survive. Their very lives depended on putting away enough for those lean times. This wasn't just a smart move. It was the difference between living and not. Across different cultures and times, people understood this deep truth. The ancient Egyptians stored grain in massive granaries. The Israelites, in their old stories, talk about Joseph advising the Pharaoh to save during years of plenty to prepare for years of famine. Even the Bible speaks of the ant, a tiny creature, gathering its food in summer, preparing for winter. It's not just about money. It's about foresight, about understanding that the present moment isn't the only one that matters. Here's an analogy that might help. Think about your body. When you eat food, your body doesn't use all that energy at once. Some of it gets stored, maybe as fat or in your muscles, ready for when you need it later. If you run a long race or skip a meal, your body taps into those stored energy reserves. It's the same principle. You're storing a resource, energy in your body, grain for ancient farmers or money for us today, so that when a challenge comes, you have something to draw upon. So, this belief, saving for a rainy day, isn't just a financial tip from your parents or a bank. It's a whisper from our ancestors, a survival instinct coded into us. It's a quiet wisdom passed down through generations. It tells us that while we should live today, we also have a responsibility to our future selves. It's about creating a sense of safety, a little cushion against life's bumps. Having that cushion can give you peace of mind, knowing that you're not completely at the mercy of whatever tomorrow might bring. It allows you to face the unknown with a bit more confidence, a little less fear. It's about building a future, one small act of saving at a time. Have you ever really stopped to wonder why we trust a simple piece of paper? Think about it. You hold a dollar bill. It's just paper and ink, right? It doesn't taste good, it can't build a house, and it certainly won't keep you warm. Yet, we trade our time, our energy, our hard work for these pieces of paper. And we trust that they will buy us food, clothes, or even a ticket to a concert. Here's the thing. The paper itself has almost no value. Its true worth comes from something invisible. It comes from a shared agreement. Everyone in a society has decided, together, that this paper represents a certain value. It's like we all tell ourselves a story, and we all believe it. And because we all believe it, the story becomes real. Centuries ago, people didn't use paper money. They traded things directly. A farmer might give corn to a craftsman for a new tool. Then, people started using valuable metals like gold and silver. These metals had their own worth because they were rare and useful. But carrying heavy bags of metal around was a problem. So, people started leaving their gold in safe places, like banks. The bank would give them a piece of paper, a note, saying they owned a certain amount of gold. This note was a promise. It said, "You can get your gold whenever you want it." But over time, something shifted. People realized they didn't always need to go get the actual gold. The paper note itself became trusted. If you had the note, others would accept it as payment, knowing they could, in theory, get the gold. Eventually, governments started printing money without backing it by gold at all. They just declared, This paper is money. It has value because we, the government, say it does. And we, the people, agreed to this idea. It works because we all keep agreeing. Think of it like this. Imagine you and your friends are playing a game. In this game, a shiny, smooth stone means you get to take an extra turn. That stone isn't special on its own, it's just a rock. But because everyone playing the game agrees it has meaning, it suddenly becomes powerful. It changes how the game is played. Money is like that smooth stone. But for our whole society, we've all agreed to the rules of this huge game of exchange. We accept that this paper, this number in a bank account, means something important. This agreement is so strong, it becomes a powerful, silent force that shapes our lives. So, when you hold $1, you're not just holding paper. You're holding a symbol of collective trust. You're holding a tiny piece of an enormous, invisible agreement that connects billions of people. It shows how deeply intertwined we are, how much our world relies on shared understanding and a quiet, universal belief. This simple piece of paper is a testament to the incredible power of human connection and our shared imagination. Have you ever thought about what it means to borrow? It's not just about taking something and giving it back. It's a promise, a trust. It's a connection between people or even between a person and time itself. Ancient societies knew this deeply. For them, borrowing was serious business, often tied to a person's very freedom or life. Here's the thing. In many old cultures, like in ancient Mesopotamia or parts of Greece, if you borrowed money and couldn't pay it back, you might not just lose your stuff. You could lose your freedom. You could become a debt slave. Imagine that. Your life, your entire future, could be owned by someone else just because you couldn't repay a loan. This wasn't some minor problem. It was a constant, terrifying shadow for many. So, why were these rules so harsh? It wasn't just greed. It was partly because societies were smaller, and trust was everything. If you broke a promise to pay back, you broke a trust that held the community together. They had to make sure people understood the weight of that promise. And for the lenders, lending was a risk. They often didn't have banks or complex legal systems to protect them. So, the rules were designed to be incredibly clear, even if they were brutal. There were also deep philosophical ideas behind it. Many ancient thinkers, and even religious texts, looked down on charging too much interest. They called it usury. The idea was, if someone is struggling so much that they need to borrow money, it's wrong to profit from their hardship. It felt like stealing hope. Lending was supposed to be an act of help, not a way to get rich off someone's desperation. This idea echoes even today in how some people view payday loans or credit card debt. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a big project due for school. You borrow time from your sleep or from your free time with friends to get it done. At first, it seems okay. But if you keep borrowing from your future self, staying up late every night, constantly putting things off until the last minute, you build up a massive debt of tiredness and stress. Eventually, that debt comes due. You might get sick, or your grades might slip, or you might just feel completely overwhelmed. You've got to pay it back, one way or another. That's a bit like what happened with ancient borrowing. The debt wasn't just money. It was a burden, a weight on your soul and your place in the world. It shaped laws, traditions, and even how people saw themselves. The whispers of those old fears, the weight of a promise, still hang in the air around us when we talk about money, even today. We've come a long way from debt slavery, thankfully. But the feeling that a borrowed thing must be returned, and that a broken promise brings a kind of imbalance, that feeling runs deep in who we are. It reminds us that every exchange, every loan, carries a piece of our trust. That's a good question. You might think so, right? In stories and movies, rich people often live in big houses, and everyone seems to look up to them. But here's the thing. It wasn't always like that. And even today, it's more complicated than you might think. Long ago, in different places, people thought about money and respect in very different ways. For example, in some very old societies, like ancient Egypt, the pharaohs had immense wealth. They were seen as gods on earth, so their money and power came from a divine place. People definitely respected them, but it was because of their position and their link to the gods, not just the gold in their tombs. Their wealth was a sign of their special role. But then, if you look at ancient Greece, things shifted. Great thinkers and philosophers there started asking tough questions about money. They wondered if being rich automatically made someone a good person. Sometimes, they even worried that too much money could make people greedy, or selfish, or even unfair. They believed that true respect came from things like wisdom, courage, or being fair to others, not from how many coins you had in your pocket. A rich person who cheated others might not be respected at all, even if they had a lot of stuff, and a wise poor person might be held in high regard. This idea kept growing. Later, in the early days of Christianity, there were many teachings that warned against loving money too much. People were told it was hard for a rich person to enter heaven. That's a pretty big thought. It meant that in some ways, having a lot of money could actually be seen as a problem, not something that automatically earned you respect. It meant people might worry about your soul, not admire your bank account. Think about it like this. Imagine a famous athlete. They make a lot of money, right? Do you respect them just because they're rich? Or do you respect them because they worked incredibly hard, trained for years, showed amazing skill, or acted like a good teammate? Most likely, it's the second part. The money is a reward for their talent and effort, but the respect comes from those deeper qualities. If that athlete suddenly became arrogant or cheated, people might stop respecting them, even if they were still super rich. So, when we look back, we see that respect is a funny thing. It's not usually given just for how much money someone has. Instead, it often comes from how they got that money, what they do with it, and what kind of person they are on the inside. It's about their actions, their character, and their impact on others. Money can open doors, but it doesn't always open hearts or earn true admiration. It makes you wonder, what do we truly value when we look at someone? What does real respect feel like? And where does it really come from? Have you ever stopped to think about why money seems to have such a powerful hold on us? It's more than just buying things. For a very long time, money and power have been twisted together, like roots of an old tree. One often leads to the other. And this ancient link still shapes our world today. Here's the thing. Since the very first coins, and even before that, when people traded valuable items, money wasn't just about getting food or tools. It was also about getting influence. Imagine a king in an ancient land. How did he keep his throne? He needed a strong army. And how did he pay his soldiers? With money or valuable goods that worked like money? He also needed to build great palaces or temples. These big projects showed his people he was strong and important. But building them took a lot of wealth. So, his money meant he could control resources. He could command people. He could make big decisions for everyone. His power came from his riches. This isn't just about kings, though. Think about ancient merchants. They might not have worn crowns, but they had money. This money let them control trade routes. It let them buy ships and hire guards. They could decide what goods came into a city and what went out. That gave them a lot of say in how things worked. Their wealth gave them a kind of quiet power, a power that could sometimes even challenge a king's. So, how does this old idea show up in our daily lives? Think about two friends, Sarah and Alex, working on a big school project about ancient Egypt. They need supplies, special colored paper, glitter, glue sticks, maybe even a small model pyramid. Sarah has some money saved up. She goes to the store and buys all the best supplies. Alex doesn't have much money right then. He has to use whatever he can find at home. When it's time to put the project together, Sarah's group might have a wider range of materials to use. They can make their presentation look more impressive, perhaps even more professional. This isn't because Sarah is smarter or works harder. It's because her access to resources money gave her more options. It let her influence the quality and impact of the final project in a way Alex couldn't. In a small way, her money gave her more power over the outcome. This idea reaches deep into our minds. Money gives us choices. It can buy us time. It can open doors that might otherwise be shut. It gives us a sense of safety and control. And when we feel safe and in control, we feel stronger. This feeling of strength, of being able to shape your own world, that's a kind of power. It's strange, isn't it? Money itself is just paper. or bits of metal, or numbers on a screen. It only has value because we, as humans, agree that it does. But because we agree, because we believe in its value, it becomes this incredibly strong force. It becomes something that can grant power, change lives, and control decisions, just as it did thousands of years ago. Our beliefs about money, even ancient ones, truly shape our world. Have you ever heard someone say, "Just work hard and you'll get rich"? It sounds simple, right? Like a clear path to success. But why do we believe this so deeply? And is it always true? Here's the thing. The idea that hard work leads to wealth is built into our minds. It suggests that if you put in enough effort, sweat, and time, money will follow. It's a powerful belief. It shapes how we see ourselves and others. It makes us think that if someone is rich, they must have worked incredibly hard. And if someone isn't rich, maybe they just didn't try hard enough. This way of thinking connects effort directly to reward, like a straight line. Where did this idea come from? It goes way back. For a long time, especially after the farming and industrial revolutions, hard work was truly necessary for survival. If you didn't plant, you didn't eat. If you didn't spin cloth, you had no clothes. Life was tough. Working hard was a must. Over time, this necessity turned into a virtue. It became something good. Philosophers and religious leaders often taught that laziness was a sin. Diligence, or hard work, was a path to grace, even prosperity. In ancient Rome, virtus, meaning strength, was often linked to effort. Later, with people like John Calvin, the idea of a calling took hold. Your work wasn't just work, it was a way to serve God. And if you were successful, it was seen as a sign of God's favor. This helped tie hard work not just to survival, but to a person's worth and spiritual standing. It became part of the American dream, too. That's the idea anyone can succeed, through sheer grit, no matter where they start. Think about a plant trying to grow. It needs sunlight, water, good soil. It needs the right conditions. A tiny seed works incredibly hard. It pushes roots down, stretches leaves up. But if that seed is planted in dry, rocky ground or doesn't get enough light, no matter how hard it tries, it might not grow strong. It might even die. Its effort alone isn't enough. The environment, the starting conditions, matter a lot. Or consider a student studying for a test. They might work really hard. They stay up late. They review everything. And that effort is important. But what if they don't have good teachers? Or they're worried about things at home? Or they're hungry? The effort is there, but the outcome isn't solely based on that. Other things play a part, like the quality of teaching, their resources, or even their personal well-being. So, while hard work is undeniably important, it's how we learn, how we build, how we grow. It's not always the only piece of the puzzle. It's not the only path to wealth. Sometimes where you start, who you know, or even just plain luck can play a huge role. It's a deep idea to think about, that our efforts are valuable, but the world around us also shapes our path. This belief, passed down through generations, reminds us to value effort, but it also asks us to be open-minded about what truly creates success and wealth in a complex world. Have you ever heard someone say, "Money doesn't grow on trees"? It's a phrase we hear often, usually from an adult, explaining why they can't buy something right away. But have you ever stopped to think about what that simple saying really means? It's much deeper than just not having enough cash. It carries an ancient truth about how we see value in the world. When we say money doesn't grow on trees, we're talking about the idea that real wealth, or anything truly valuable, isn't easy to get. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere, like leaves on a branch. Instead, it comes from effort. It comes from time, hard work, and sometimes a bit of cleverness. This isn't just about bills and coins. It's about understanding where value truly comes from. Think back to ancient times. Long before banks or even metal coins were common, people didn't buy things with money. They traded. If you wanted food, you might trade a tool you made. If you wanted a warm blanket, you might trade the crops you grew. What made that tool or those crops valuable? It was the human effort, the skill, the sweat, and the time put into making them. A hunter's catch was valuable because of the danger and effort involved. A crafted pot was valuable because of the skill and hours spent shaping the clay. So, the value of something was directly linked to the effort it took to create it, or its rarity in nature. Money, when it eventually appeared, was just a way to keep track of that effort and value without having to carry around a bunch of chickens or clay pots. But the core idea stayed the same. Value has a source, and that source is often human work or natural scarcity. Here's how it works in a way that might feel more familiar. Imagine you're learning to play a musical instrument, like the piano. When you first sit down, you might make a lot of noise. But if you keep practicing day after day, hour after hour, slowly, carefully, your fingers learn where to go. Your brain starts to understand the notes. Over time, that noise turns into beautiful music. That music didn't just appear. It didn't grow on trees. It was created by your consistent effort, your patience, and your dedication. The skill you gain, the joy you get from playing, that's the wealth you've earned from your hard work. It shows that anything truly rewarding, anything with lasting value, is often built with care and time. So, when we hear money doesn't grow on trees, it's not just a warning about spending, it's a whisper from our past, reminding us that valuable things take root in effort and perseverance. It teaches us to respect resources, to understand the effort behind everything we use, and to value what we earn. It's a timeless lesson about patience, hard work, and the real meaning of what makes something truly rich and meaningful in our lives. Have you ever thought about how old stories, even super old ones, can still whisper to us today, especially when it comes to something as everyday as money? It sounds strange, right? Curses and coins, but for a long time, people believed that money wasn't just metal or paper. They thought it carried energy, intentions, even spirits. If money was gained unfairly, or if it was handled with greed and ill will, some believed it could be cursed. This wasn't always a magic spell. Sometimes, it was just the idea that bad actions lead to bad outcomes, like a dark cloud hanging over the money or the person holding it. Think about ancient Egypt or Rome. People believed in gods who watched over everything, including wealth. If you cheated someone, or hoarded vast amounts while others starved, it wasn't just a crime against the law. It was seen as upsetting the balance, offending the gods or the natural order. And the curse wasn't necessarily a lightning bolt from the sky. It could be bad luck, sudden poverty, illness, or even an early death. It was a way of saying, what goes around, comes around. Money gained through dishonesty was thought to bring suffering, not happiness. Philosophers, wise thinkers from ancient Greece to China, talked a lot about how wealth should be used. They warned against greed. They said that chasing money for its own sake, without thought for how it affects others, could lead to a lonely, miserable life. This idea isn't a magical curse, but a deep truth about human nature. When our hearts are filled only with wanting more, we can lose sight of what truly matters: connection, kindness, peace. Here's an everyday example. Imagine you have a friend who always finds shortcuts, maybe cheats on a test, or takes credit for someone else's work. They might get a good grade for now, or even get praised. But what happens over time? Other friends start to notice. Teachers see through it. They lose trust. That win isn't really a win, is it? It creates a kind of invisible bad energy around them, pushing people away. It's like that with money, too. If someone builds wealth by harming others, or being totally unfair, that money might be there, but it often comes with a heavy cost. The curse isn't a spell, but the natural consequence of negative actions: guilt, isolation, suspicion, a life lived without genuine joy or respect. Think about it like this. If you build a house on shaky ground, even if it looks nice, it won't last. The curse isn't a wizard wishing it down. It's the simple law of physics, the ground giving way. Similarly, when money is built on dishonest or harmful foundations, it often crumbles, not from a spell, but from the weight of its own bad origins. The system just isn't stable. So, when we hear about ancient curses linked to money, it's not always about spooky magic. Often, it's a deep, old wisdom. It's a reminder that how we get our money, and how we use it, shapes not just our bank accounts, but our entire lives. It shapes our character. It affects our peace of mind. The ancient ideas tell us that true wealth isn't just about how much you have, but how you got it and what you do with it. They suggest that money, like any powerful tool, carries the intentions of its owner. And maybe, just maybe, the curse is really just the natural consequence of forgetting that simple, powerful truth. Does money really buy happiness? It's a question people have asked for a long, long time. We often hear that saying, money can't buy happiness. But deep down, don't many of us feel like maybe, just maybe, it actually can? We see shiny things, big houses, cool gadgets, and think, if I had that, I'd be happy. This belief that money buys happiness is powerful. It means we think the more cash we have, the more joy and peace we'll feel. It's the idea that true contentment comes from having lots of stuff, or never having to worry about bills. It suggests that if you have enough money, you won't have problems, and life will be smooth and perfect. You know, this isn't a new thought. Even ancient people probably saw how having more resources made life easier. If you had extra food or better tools, you probably felt more secure, maybe even happier. But thinkers throughout history, like ancient Greek philosophers, often talked about how inner peace, not outer wealth, was the key. They said happiness came from living a good life, being wise, and having strong friendships. And later, many spiritual teachings also pointed to inner richness over material wealth. So, while money has always been helpful for basic needs, this strong belief that it's the source of happiness, rather than just a tool, has really grown over time, especially in our modern world, where we're always shown new things to buy. Think about this. You really want a new video game or a fancy pair of sneakers. You save up, you get them, and for a while, you're super excited, right? That's the money buys happiness feeling. But then, after a week or two, that newness wears off. The game isn't quite as exciting. The shoes just become your shoes. You get used to them. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. It means we quickly get used to new good things. So, while getting something new gives us a quick boost, it doesn't give us lasting happiness. It's like when you're super hungry, and the first bite of a pizza is amazing. But by the fifth slice, it's just food. It doesn't give you the same burst of joy anymore. Our brains adapt. The joy fades. This is why people who win the lottery, after the initial excitement, often find themselves no happier than before. Sometimes even less so, if their lives change in overwhelming ways. So, here's the thing. Money can buy comfort. It can buy experiences. It can help you take care of your family and help others. And for sure, not having enough money causes stress and unhappiness. Nobody argues that. But the idea that having more and more money beyond what you need for a comfortable life automatically brings endless joy, that's where it gets tricky. True, deep happiness often comes from things money can't buy. Loving relationships, a sense of purpose, helping others, feeling healthy, and finding peace inside yourself. It's about building a life that feels rich in meaning, not just in dollars. It's about recognizing that happiness is more of an inside job, a way of looking at the world than something you can purchase from a store. It's a quiet truth that many people eventually discover. Have you ever stopped to think about what true giving really feels like? Not just giving a gift to get one back, but giving without expecting anything in return? It's a quiet, powerful feeling, isn't it? For a long, long time, how people thought about money and value was very different from today. It wasn't always about how much you could collect or keep for yourself. There was a time, way back, when societies believed that giving was actually more important than getting. Imagine that. It wasn't just about sharing, but about the very idea that your value, or your family's value, grew by what you contributed to the group, not just what you owned. People didn't measure success by their bank account or the number of things they had. Instead, their standing in the community, their respect, often came from how much they shared, how much they gave away. Think about ancient tribes. Long before coins or banks, survival often depended on everyone helping each other. If a hunter brought down a large animal, sharing the meat wasn't just nice. It was essential for the whole group to survive. And the best hunters, the most respected ones, weren't those who hoarded their catch. They were the ones who made sure everyone ate. This created a strong bond. It wasn't a strict trade, like, I give you meat, you give me tools. It was more of a deep understanding that helping others made the whole community stronger, including you. It built trust. This idea wasn't just about survival, though. Many ancient beliefs, many old stories, talk about sacrifice and offerings. People would give their best crops or animals to their gods, not because they expected a direct, immediate reward, but because they believed it kept the world in balance, or honored something bigger than themselves. Giving was a way to show respect, to show faith, to connect with something powerful. It was about community, connection, and even a kind of spiritual balance. It was believed that a generous spirit brought good fortune, not just in riches, but in peace and harmony within the group. Consider a time someone truly helped you, maybe with homework or a tough problem, and they didn't ask for anything back. Or maybe you've been that person, offering help to a friend just because you saw they needed it. How did that feel? You probably felt good, right? A quiet warmth spread through you. Or think about a science project where everyone contributes their best ideas. Even if only one person presents the final work, the success belongs to the group, and everyone feels good about their part in making it happen. It's like when a team wins a game. Sure, one person might score the winning point, but the whole team contributed, and the joy is shared by everyone. That shared success, that feeling of contributing to something larger, is a bit like how ancient people might have felt when they gave, without expecting direct payment. It wasn't about getting praise or a trophy. It was about the strength and bond of the group, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you played a valuable part. This old way of thinking, where giving felt more important than getting, reminds us that money isn't the only measure of worth. It reminds us that our true value, sometimes, isn't found in what we can grab for ourselves, but in the connections we build, the support we offer, and the quiet strength that comes from making someone else's life a little better. It's a deep, lasting feeling, much bigger than any fleeting satisfaction from owning something new. It's a reminder that true richness might just be in what we share, not what we keep. Have you ever wondered why we give extra money for a service? Like at a restaurant, or when someone delivers your food. It's called tipping, and it feels normal, right? But where did this idea actually come from? Here's the thing. Tipping wasn't always a part of our lives, and it certainly wasn't always seen as a good thing. At its simplest, tipping is an extra payment, given on top of the bill, to someone who provides a service. We do it so often, it's easy to forget it's kind of a strange custom when you stop to think about it. This practice began way back in medieval Europe. Rich people, like lords and ladies, would give small bits of money to the servants in other houses they visited. It was a little bonus, yes, but it was also a way to show off their own wealth. It was sometimes about making sure they got quick service too, a small payment to ensure promptness. But mostly, it was about the giver's status, not really about the worker getting fair pay. When tipping came to America, especially after the Civil War, it took on a much deeper, sometimes darker, meaning. Many newly freed enslaved people had very few job options. Railroad companies and restaurants started hiring them but paid them almost nothing. The idea was that customers would tip them, making up for their low wages. So it wasn't just generosity anymore. It was a way for businesses to pay less and shift the burden onto customers. People actually fought against it back then. They saw it as unfair and un-American, because it made workers dependent on the customer's mood, not on a stable, fair wage. Some states even tried to ban tipping entirely. So, what does that mean for us today? Tipping often feels like a choice, a direct way to say thank you for great service. But is it always a choice? Sometimes it feels more like an expectation, a silent rule we all follow. It gives the customer a lot of power. A worker's pay, in some places, depends heavily on whether you like them, whether you're feeling generous, or even just whether you remembered to bring cash. It creates this interesting dance between the person giving the money and the person receiving it, where one has a lot of control over the other's income. Think about it like this. Imagine you're playing a video game. Sometimes, you earn points by completing levels, a clear goal, a fixed amount. But what if sometimes, after you finish a level, the game just randomly decided how many extra bonus points you got, based on how much the game felt you deserved, or how good your last move looked to it? And those bonus points were what you actually needed to buy new items in the game? That's kind of how tipping can feel. It adds an element of chance, of one person's personal judgment, to something that should be a stable way for someone to make a living. Tipping, then, isn't just about money changing hands. It's about history, power, and how we value the work people do. It asks us to think about what we truly owe others for their effort, and what is fair. It reminds us that even small daily actions can carry a long, complex story about how people have always dealt with money, worth, and the feeling of control. Have you ever wondered why some people keep their money a secret? Not just in a bank account, but truly hidden away. Maybe tucked under a mattress or buried in a metal box in the backyard. It might seem a little odd in our modern world, where most of us use banks and credit cards without a second thought. But this powerful urge to hide money goes back much, much further than you might imagine. It tells us something very deep about what it means to be human. Think back to our ancestors, thousands of years ago. There were no banks then, no secure digital vaults. If you owned anything valuable, a handful of coins, a precious jewel, even a store of dried grain, you had to protect it yourself. Your wealth wasn't just numbers on a screen. It was a physical thing, heavy and real, and very tempting to others. The world was a wilder, more uncertain place. There were no police forces as we know them, no easy ways to get your things back if they were stolen. Raids by bandits, changing rulers, even just natural disasters could wipe out everything you had in an instant. So, people buried their valuables. They'd stash them in secret nooks, under floorboards, or deep in the earth. This wasn't about being sneaky. It was a basic act of survival. It was how you kept your family safe, ensured you had food for winter, or could rebuild after a hardship. This deep, ancient fear of losing everything, this powerful need to protect what's vital, became woven into our very nature. It's a lot like watching a squirrel bury its nuts for the winter. That squirrel isn't thinking about interest rates or investment strategies. It's driven by a powerful, unshakable instinct: protect vital resources for the future. It knows instinctively that winter is coming, and food will be hard to find. So, it carefully buries its treasures, sometimes in many different spots, spreading the risk. It's an act of planning, yes, but it's also fueled by a quiet, deep-seated anxiety about scarcity. For humans, that same anxiety around money can feel just as strong. Even today, with all our modern security, some people still feel that ancient pull. They worry about things going wrong, a big financial crisis, a natural disaster, or just a feeling of not having enough personal control over their own lives. Hiding money, for them, isn't just about the physical cash. It's about a profound feeling of safety, a sense of having a last resort, a secret shield against whatever the world might throw at them. It's a way of saying quietly, "This much I control, this much no one can easily take from me." So, when we see someone choose to hide their money, whether in a tin box or a secret account, it's rarely about being strange or overly greedy. Instead, it often points to a very old, very human feeling: the need for security in a world that can still feel incredibly unpredictable. It's about fear, yes, but even more, it's about a deep human desire to protect what allows us to feel safe, to survive, and to keep going. That quiet desire for safety, that ancient wisdom of self-preservation, has been a part of us for thousands of years. It connects us to every person who ever buried a coin or stashed a gem, reminding us that some feelings run incredibly deep in the human heart, no matter how much our world changes. Have you ever heard someone say they wish for good luck to get rich? Or seen movies where a treasure chest makes someone instantly wealthy? This idea that wealth just lands on some people is a very old belief. For thousands of years, long before today's complex economies, people often thought money or resources came mostly from chance. They believed wealth wasn't just about hard work, it was about fate, or if the gods favored you, or simply good fortune. If your crops grew well, Maybe it was luck. If you found a valuable stone, pure luck. This made life feel like a giant lottery. You could work, yes, but the real big wins? Those were for the lucky ones. Think about ancient cultures. The Romans had Fortuna, a goddess of luck, often shown blind to mean luck was random. Many cultures use charms, four-leaf clovers, horseshoes, lucky coins. People carried them, hoping to attract money. This wasn't just superstition. It was how people made sense of a world that felt unpredictable. If a merchant's ship sank, it was bad luck, not bad planning. If another ship arrived full of treasure, it was good luck, a blessing. This belief shaped how people saw their place in the world and what they could control. So, how does this old idea connect to us today? Think about playing a video game. Sometimes, you get a rare item drop that makes your character super powerful. That feels like pure luck. You didn't earn it. It just happened. But what about the player who spends hours learning the game's mechanics and building skills? Their progress is steady and strong because of their effort. Here's the thing. Both can lead to success in the game, but one is random and fleeting. The other built on skill and time. In real life, hitting the lottery is like that lucky item drop. Most people who build real, lasting financial well-being do it more like the skilled gamer. They learn, they plan, they put in the work. They might have small bits of luck, but that's not their main way of building things. Is all this talk of luck useless? Not entirely. It's okay to hope for good things, but the deep truth is, relying only on luck for wealth can be like waiting for rain in a desert when you could be digging a well. True wealth, the kind that feels steady and earned, often comes from understanding things, making smart choices, and sticking with goals. It's about building, not just wishing. It's about learning that while life has its random moments, a lot of what we achieve and how we feel about it comes from the effort we put in. And that's a powerful thought. It means we have more say in our own story than we might think. This is a question people have thought about for a very long time, stretching back thousands of years. Most of us imagine that having a lot of money would be great. It could buy us comfort, freedom, and all sorts of cool things. But is there a point where having too much money changes things, not just for the person who has it, but for everyone around them? Here's the thing. Ancient thinkers, like the Greek philosophers we sometimes learn about, didn't always see huge wealth as purely good. They talked a lot about something called moderation. This meant finding a balance in everything, not having too much or too little of anything important. For them, endless wealth could actually be a kind of trap. They thought it might pull you away from what they saw as real happiness, wisdom, being kind, or helping your community. They believed that when a person focused only on gathering more and more money, they might miss out on deeper, more important parts of life. It's like spending all your time just collecting shiny rocks, but never looking up to see the beautiful sky or the people around you. So, it's not just about how many zeros are in your bank account. It's about what that money does, how it changes a person, and how it connects or disconnects them from others. Think about a super powerful tool, like a giant, super sharp knife. If a skilled chef uses that knife to prepare delicious food for many people, it's an amazing thing. It brings joy and nourishment. But if someone unskilled or careless picks up that same knife and uses it recklessly, it can cause harm. The knife itself isn't good or bad. It's just a tool. But the power it holds, and how someone chooses to use that power, makes all the difference. Money is a lot like that powerful tool. It's a resource that comes with a lot of potential power. So, is it bad to be super rich? Maybe the real question isn't about the money itself, but about the heart and mind of the person who has it. It's about the choices they make once they have all that power. Does great wealth make a person feel more connected to others, or does it make them feel separate and alone? Does it bring them true joy and purpose, or just more worries and stress? It reminds us that balance matters, even with something as seemingly good as money, and that what truly counts in the end isn't just what you own, but who you are and what you choose to do for the world around you. Have you ever thought about money in your family, not just what's spent or saved, but how it's thought about? Here's the thing. Every family has unspoken rules about money. These aren't rules written down anywhere, and they're rarely talked about out loud, but they are very powerful. They're like invisible threads connecting us to the generations before us, guiding how we see money and how we use it. Think of it like a silent language. Maybe your family always saves for a big purchase, or perhaps they believe in spending money on experiences instead of things. Maybe they never discuss how much money they have, or they always make sure to give some away. These are all part of the silent rules. They shape our first ideas about money, long before we even earn our own. For thousands of years, families were the main way people survived. Back in ancient times, there were no banks or big companies in the way we have them today. If your family farmed, you shared the harvest. If they were skilled crafters, they passed down their tools and methods. Money, in whatever form it took, maybe shells, salt, or coins, was directly tied to survival and to the family's place in the community. If one generation handled money a certain way, it often directly affected the next. Did they save seeds for next year's crop? Did they hoard what they had, or share it with neighbors? These choices weren't just personal, they were family survival strategies. And over time, these ways of doing things turned into habits, then into beliefs, then into these unspoken rules we still carry. It's a bit like how a river flows. A river cuts its path over many, many years. The rocks and soil from long ago decide its main direction. Even if new rain falls or the land changes a little, the river tends to follow that old, deep path. Our family's money beliefs are like that river. The path was carved by our ancestors, by their struggles and their successes, what they learned about money, what they feared, what they valued. That created a flow. And even if our world looks very different now, we often find ourselves following that same unseen current. We might not even know why we feel a certain way about debt, or saving, or giving money away. But often, it's because someone, a long time ago, a parent or grandparent, felt that way too, and it became part of the family's flow. So, what does this mean for us? It means we are part of something bigger. It means understanding that some of our automatic thoughts about money aren't just ours. They are echoes from the past. When you realize this, you can start to see these silent rules. You can ask, is this path still right for me? Do I want to follow this current? Or do I want to carve a new one? It's about becoming aware of these unseen legacies so you can choose your own path with open eyes. Do we really just use money for everything? It seems like it, right? We earn money. We spend money. It's how our world works. But if you look closely, you might notice an older way of trading, a very ancient one, still hiding in plain sight. It's called bartering. Bartering is simply swapping one thing for another, without using cash. Imagine trading your extra drawing pencils for your friend's cool comic book. No money changes hands. It's a direct swap of items or services. This was how people got what they needed for thousands of years, long before coins or paper money even existed. If you grew good corn, and your neighbor was a skilled potter, you might trade your corn for a new clay pot. It was simple, it was direct, and it built a feeling of connection between people, because you relied on each other's skills and goods. This ancient way of doing things tells us something important about value. It shows that value isn't always a price tag. It's about what something does for you, or what someone's skill can provide. It's about matching needs. You have something someone else wants, and they have something you need. It's a very human way of interacting. Think about your own life. You might not call it bartering, but you probably do it without even thinking. Maybe you're really good at math, and a friend struggles with it. But that friend is amazing at, say, art. You offer to help them with a tough math problem after school. In return, they offer to draw something awesome for your history project. No money was exchanged. It was a trade of skills, of time, of effort. This happens all the time between neighbors too. Maybe your parents help a neighbor fix their leaky faucet, and in exchange, that neighbor helps your family with yard work next weekend. Or a older student tutors a younger one for free, and then the younger student helps them set up their social media page. These are all forms of bartering. They are not about profit, they are about helping each other and sharing what you have. These small, everyday acts of trading show us something deep about how we connect. They remind us that sometimes The most valuable things aren't bought or sold with money. They are shared. They build trust. They make communities stronger. They show that we rely on each other in ways that go beyond a simple price. Money is a powerful tool, yes, for sure. But the idea of direct exchange, of giving and receiving based on human need and shared skills, that runs much deeper in us. It's a quiet reminder that we are all part of a larger web, giving and receiving, not just with cash, but with our time, our talents, and our care for one another. Have you ever worried about losing something really important to you, like your phone or a favorite jacket, or maybe even your lunch money? That feeling, that knot in your stomach, is a small taste of a much bigger, older fear. It's the deep, silent fear of losing all your money. This isn't just about losing a few dollars. It's about losing everything. It's a fear that has been with humans for thousands of years, a shadow lurking behind every coin, every trade, every bank account. Think about it this way. For most of human history, money wasn't just numbers on a screen or paper in your wallet. It was your food, your shelter, your tools, your ability to trade for medicine. If you were a hunter-gatherer, losing your hunting tools or failing to find food meant real danger. If you were an early farmer, a bad harvest or a raided crop meant starvation. There were no safety nets, no helplines. Your very survival depended on the resources you had, and the fear of those resources vanishing was intense. It was a fear woven into the fabric of daily life. This feeling, this deep-seated worry, got passed down through generations. Our brains learned to see money not just as something nice to have, but as a direct link to our safety and well-being. It's like a built-in alarm system. When our money feels threatened, that old ancient alarm goes off. It tells us, warning, danger ahead. Your survival might be at risk. Even today, when most of us don't rely directly on a successful hunt or a good harvest, that primal alarm still rings loud in our minds. Here's an example to help picture it. Imagine a squirrel burying nuts for winter. It doesn't bury them because it loves nuts more than anything. It buries them because it knows winter is coming. It's preparing for a time of scarcity. Its very life depends on those buried nuts. Now, think of us. We work hard, we save money, we try to hold on to it. It's not just about greed. A part of us, a very old part, is doing what that squirrel does. We are trying to protect ourselves from a winter we hope never comes, a time when we might not have enough. That feeling of panic when your phone goes missing, and with it all your saved photos or contacts? It's a mini version of the much bigger panic about losing your financial nuts, your savings, your ability to pay for things you need. It's a very human reaction, rooted in our deep past. So, this fear of losing all your money, it's not just a modern worry. It's a whisper from a time when life was much harder and resources were everything. It's a memory in our bones, telling us to be careful, to be prepared. But here's the thing. Understanding this fear helps us manage it. Money is important, yes. It gives us choices and security. But our worth, our true value, isn't held in a bank account. It's in our ability to learn, to adapt, to connect with others, to be kind. Money can come and go. But inner strength, a willingness to try again, and the bonds we share with people we care about, those are things that no one can ever truly take away from us, no matter what happens with a bank account. Have you ever really stopped to think about the word enough? Like, what does it truly mean to have enough? For us, today, it feels like that word is always moving, doesn't it? Like a finish line that keeps getting further away. But imagine a time, long, long ago, when enough wasn't just a feeling, but a very real, very clear thing. Back then, for many people, especially those living off the land, enough wasn't about how many shoes you owned or the newest gadget. It was about survival. It was about having food to eat, a safe place to sleep, and clothes to keep warm. If you had enough food for your family for the day, or enough seeds to plant for the next harvest, then you had enough. There was a natural limit to things. You couldn't store endless amounts of grain without it spoiling. You couldn't carry endless supplies. So, once basic needs were met, there wasn't a huge push to gather more and more. Here's the thing. In ancient communities, people often knew exactly how much was needed. They understood what their land could provide. or how much game was healthy to hunt without hurting the animals for future generations. There was a sense of balance. If you had caught enough fish for your village, you didn't just keep fishing for no reason. If your garden produced enough vegetables, you weren't constantly trying to expand it just to have more than everyone else. This idea of sufficiency, just having what you need, was built into how people lived. It wasn't about endless growth, but about living well within limits. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a glass, and you need to fill it with water to drink. You pour water in until the glass is full. That's enough. If you keep pouring, the water just spills over. It doesn't make the glass more full. It just creates a mess and wastes water. For ancient people, their lives were often like that glass. There was a point where adding more didn't make things better, only more complicated, or even wasteful. They understood that pouring more wasn't always the answer. They stopped when the glass was full. This way of thinking brought a different kind of peace. When you know you have enough, you can stop striving so hard. You can spend more time with your family, tell stories, learn new skills, or simply rest. The constant chase for more, which we feel so much today, wasn't as strong. There was less anxiety about not having enough, because enough was a clear, achievable state. It reminds us that maybe, just maybe, happiness isn't found in always getting more, but in knowing, deeply and truly, when we already have all that we need. And that's a powerful thought to carry with us. Have you ever really wanted something so much that you knew you had to give up something else important to get it? Maybe you wanted to be great at a sport, so you gave up hours of video games to practice. Or maybe you saved up for a big trip, which meant saying no to smaller fun things for a while. This feeling, this choice, is super old. It goes way back to ancient times, and it shaped how people thought about money, luck, and even life itself. It's the idea of sacrifice for gain. For us today, sacrifice might sound like giving something up forever, like a sad ending. But in ancient times, it was often seen differently. It was a trade. People believed they lived in a world where powerful, unseen forces controlled everything: the rain, the harvest, even sickness and health. If you wanted something good to happen or something bad to stop, you had to offer something valuable. This offering was a sacrifice. It wasn't about losing something for nothing. It was about giving a little to get a lot. Think about early farmers. Their lives depended on the weather. A long drought meant starvation. A huge flood meant ruined crops. So they might sacrifice their best animal, or a part of their precious harvest, offering it to the gods or spirits they believed controlled the skies. They weren't just throwing away food or animals. They were making a deal. Here is something valuable from us. They might have thought, in exchange for the rain we desperately need, or the protection from a storm. It was a form of payment, a kind of ancient investment in their future. The value of what they gave up was measured against the value of what they hoped to receive. This idea wasn't just about big dramatic offerings. It was woven into daily life. If a craftsman wanted his work to be perfect, he might dedicate hours and hours to it, giving up leisure time, even sleep. That intense effort, that giving of his own comfort and time, was a sacrifice. The gain? A beautiful, strong pot or tool, a good reputation, and customers who would pay well. It's like in school. If you want to understand a tough science concept, you might give up an evening with friends to study your textbook. You're sacrificing immediate fun for the gain of knowledge and a good grade later. Your brain, in a way, is making a trade. Hard work now for understanding later. It's a very human thing, wanting to get something better by putting something valuable forward. This ancient pattern of thinking still shows up in our lives, sometimes without us even realizing it. We still believe that to achieve something great, we often have to give up something. It could be time, comfort, ease, or even money. It reminds us that life often asks for a trade. You give up a piece of the present for a better piece of the future. It's a quiet truth, a deep understanding that what you gain is often linked to what you are willing to let go of first. Can something as simple as paper bills or numbers on a screen truly change who you are inside? Make you kinder, more honest? It's a question people have thought about for thousands of years. We often see stories in movies, or hear tales about someone who gets rich and suddenly becomes a villain or a hero. So, which is it? Does money hold some kind of magic power to make us good or bad? Here's the thing. Money itself is just a tool. It has no feelings, no thoughts, no intentions. It can't decide to make you good or evil. Think of it like a hammer. A hammer can build a beautiful house, piece by piece, creating shelter and safety. Or, in the wrong hands, it can be used to break things, to cause harm. The hammer isn't good or bad. It's the person holding it and their choices that make the difference. Ancient thinkers, long before our time, understood this. They didn't see wealth as automatically making someone better or worse. Instead, many wise people from different cultures saw money as a test, a way to see what was truly inside a person. If someone was already generous at heart, having more money might just mean they could be generous on a bigger scale, helping more people, building schools, or supporting causes they believed in. But if someone was already selfish or greedy, more money might just make those traits grow stronger, leading them to hoard, to exploit, or to forget about others. The idea that money reveals character rather than changes it is powerful. Imagine looking through a magnifying glass. The glass doesn't change the object you're looking at. It doesn't make a small ant into a giant monster. What it does is make what's already there appear bigger, clearer, more noticeable. Money works a bit like that. If your spirit is already filled with kindness and a desire to help, money can magnify those qualities, allowing you to do more good. If your heart holds selfishness or a need for power over others, money might magnify those things too, making them more obvious and giving them more room to grow. So, when we ask if money makes us better, maybe the answer isn't a simple yes or no. Maybe money just gives us more options, more power to act on the person we already are. It gives us a bigger stage to show our true colors to the world. The real work of becoming a better person isn't about how much money we have in our pockets or how large our bank account grows. It's about the choices we make every single day, the kindness we offer, the empathy we feel for others, and the way we choose to treat everyone around us, regardless of our own wealth. It's about building our character from the inside out, deciding who we want to be, and then living that out, one thoughtful action at a time. Money might help us do more of what we already are, but it can't create goodness where none existed. That part, the truly important part, is always up to us, in our hearts and minds. Have you ever thought about how something incredibly vast, like the ocean, is made up of countless individual drops of water, or how a giant mountain range grew from tiny specks of dust and rock pushed together over millions of years? It's a simple idea, really, but it holds a deep lesson about how we think about money and about life itself. This ancient wisdom tells us to value the small things. It's not about big, sudden wins. It's about the slow, steady act of putting away a tiny bit over and over again. Think about people long ago, even before there were banks. Maybe a farmer would set aside a handful of grain after each harvest. Not all of it, just a little. A craftsperson might keep a few coins from each sale, not spending everything right away. This wasn't because they were rich. Often, it was because they knew hard times might come, or because they had a long-term goal. They understood that even a tiny bit, kept safe, would slowly grow. Here's the thing. This isn't just a lesson about saving money. It's a way of looking at the world. Imagine you want to learn to play the guitar. You don't just pick it up one day and become a rock star. You start with learning a single chord, then another. Maybe you practice for just 15 minutes each day. It feels like nothing at first. It's tiny bits of effort. But if you keep doing those small, consistent practices day after day, those tiny bits of learning stack up. And suddenly, after months or a year, you can play a whole song. You've built a skill, not with one huge leap, but with thousands of small, steady steps. This idea echoes through history, found in stories and proverbs from all over the world. Many cultures have said something like, "Little by little, the bird builds its nest," or "Many drops make a shower." It speaks to a deep human understanding that growth, real growth, often takes time and patience. It teaches us that the biggest achievements aren't always born from huge, flashy beginnings. Instead, they often come from quiet, consistent effort. So, Why does this old lesson still matter today? Because our world often pushes us to want things fast. We see instant results online, and we might think success should happen overnight. But the truth is, most lasting things, whether it's a skill, a friendship, or financial security, are built slowly. They're built by respecting the power of the small contribution. It means understanding that every tiny step forward, every little bit saved, every small effort is not insignificant. Each one is a building block. And when we understand that, we begin to see that even the smallest action we take today can, over time, create something truly meaningful and strong for our future. It's a quiet power, this lesson, but a powerful one indeed. Have you ever thought about how much a simple promise, like a promise to pay back money, could really cost? We think of loans today as a way to buy something big, like a house or a car. You pay it back over time. But imagine a world where borrowing a small amount of grain or a few coins could cost you everything, even your freedom. This might sound like something out of a scary story, but in many ancient societies, loans weren't just about money. They were about survival. And if you couldn't pay back what you owed, the consequences were often terrifyingly real. We're talking about debt that could lead to your actual enslavement. Here's the thing. In places like ancient Mesopotamia, which is where Iraq is today, and even later in ancient Greece and Rome, there wasn't a safety net like we have now. If your crops failed because of a drought, or if disease swept through your family, you might have no way to eat or get help. So, you'd go to a richer neighbor or a temple and borrow what you needed. Maybe it was grain to plant, or silver to buy food for your kids. The problem was, if you couldn't pay it back when harvest time came, the interest would pile up. Interest is the extra money you pay for borrowing. In those times, it could be very high. If you missed a payment, or if another disaster struck, that small debt could quickly grow. And if you couldn't pay, the law said you might have to work for your lender, not for a few weeks or months, but for years. Sometimes, you'd become a debt slave, owned by the person you owed money to. And not just you, but your children too. Their future was stolen before they even had a chance to live it freely. Think of it like a tiny snowball, rolling down a very steep, icy hill. You start with a small flake of snow, a small debt. But as it rolls, it picks up more and more snow, getting bigger and faster. The more it rolls, the harder it is to stop. Eventually, that tiny snowball becomes an unstoppable avalanche. A small loan, meant to help you survive, could turn into an avalanche of debt that buried your freedom, your family, and your entire future. You lost the right to your own life, your own choices. You became property. It's a powerful, sobering thought. It shows us how deeply connected our lives are to money, even today. It makes you realize the true value of being free, of having choices, and of owning your own time and your own self. Those ancient echoes remind us that while money can be a tool for good, it also holds an immense power, a power that can, if unchecked, shape human lives in ways we might never expect. It's a quiet reminder of how precious our freedom really is. Have you ever felt that quiet, uncomfortable feeling when you owe someone something? It could be a friend, for that $5 you borrowed for lunch. Or maybe you've seen it in grown-ups, that look of worry or embarrassment when they talk about money they need to pay back. This feeling, this heavy weight, is often what we call shame, linked to being in debt. It's more than just a number on a page. It's about how we feel about ourselves when we owe. Here's the thing. This feeling isn't new. It's not something invented recently. Go way, way back in history, to ancient times, and you'll find that debt carried a huge social burden. Imagine living in a small village thousands of years ago. People depended on each other for everything. If you borrowed grain or tools from a neighbor, and then you couldn't pay them back, it wasn't just about the grain. It was about trust. It was about your place in the community. Would people still see you as reliable, as someone they could count on? In many ancient societies, owing money could mean losing your freedom. People could become servants, or even slaves, to pay off their debts. This wasn't just a legal rule. It became deeply woven into how people thought about what was right and wrong. To be debt-free was a sign of honor, of being a good, upright person. To be in debt was often seen as a failure, not just of your finances, but of your character. This old idea, that debt somehow makes you less worthy, has stuck around, like a very old ghost in our modern minds. Think about it like this. Imagine you're part of a team project at school. Everyone agrees to do their part, but then one person doesn't do their share. They owe the group effort. Even if nobody says anything mean, that person might feel a deep sense of shame or guilt. They know they didn't hold up their end of the deal. They might feel like they've let the team down, or that their classmates see them differently. It's not just about the grade. It's about how they feel about their place in that group, about their own integrity. That quiet feeling of not measuring up, that's similar to the shame of debt. It's about feeling like you've broken a promise, even if that promise was just to yourself, to manage your own life well. So, this heavy feeling about debt, it's a whisper from our ancestors. It tells us about the deep human need for trust, for connection, and for feeling like we belong and can contribute. It reminds us that money, for all its practical uses, has always been tied to our deepest feelings about who we are and how we stand in the world. And understanding that history, recognizing that this shame isn't just about money but about very old human worries, can sometimes make its burden feel a little lighter. Have you ever stopped to wonder if the idea of stealing is wrong has always been a thing? It feels so basic to us now. Taking someone's money or their stuff without permission feels wrong, doesn't it? But societies and how they work have changed so much over thousands of years. So, was this belief always baked into human nature? Or did we learn it over time? Think way, way back to a time before cities, before farms, before money. Early humans lived in small groups. They hunted and gathered. They shared resources, like the meat from a hunt or the berries they found. In these groups, everyone relied on each other to survive. If someone had a useful tool, like a sharp stone axe, it was theirs, even if it wasn't bought with money. If another person took that axe without asking, it wasn't just losing a tool. It broke trust. It might put the whole group in danger, because that axe was needed for hunting or protection. So, even then, taking something that belonged to someone else, something they had put effort into making or finding, caused problems. It upset the balance of the group. As humans started to farm, things changed more. People began to own land and the crops they grew on it. They worked hard, sometimes for months, to grow food. If someone came and took their harvest, it wasn't just unfair. It was a threat to their survival, to their family's ability to eat. So, rules started to form. Ancient laws, like the ones from Old Babylon, clearly talked about what would happen if you stole grain or animals. These laws weren't just about punishing someone. They were about keeping order. They were about protecting the hard work of people and making sure everyone could live safely. People learned that respecting what others owned was vital for the group to succeed. Here's the thing. It's a lot like being part of a team project at school. Imagine your whole class is working on a big art project together. Everyone agrees to bring their own special colored pencils or paintbrushes. You spend hours carefully drawing your part. Then, someone quietly takes your favorite blue pencil, the one you need to finish your drawing, and uses it for their own personal doodle. How would that make you feel? It's not just that the pencil is gone. It's that your trust in that person and in the fairness of the project gets broken. It messes up your work and makes the whole team project harder to complete. That feeling of unfairness, of something being disrupted, is what stealing creates. So, it seems that the feeling of wrong connected to taking what's not yours has deep roots. It's not just about money or things. It's about trust, about fairness, and about keeping a community stable. When someone steals, they don't just take an object. They chip away at the invisible rules that hold us together. They break the shared understanding that we will respect each other and what we have worked for. This idea that respecting what belongs to another is important for everyone has always been a key part of how humans try to live together. And that deep feeling, that sense of unfairness, is why stealing has pretty much always been seen as wrong. Have you ever walked down a street, eyes on the ground, and spotted something shiny? Maybe it was just a penny, or maybe a dollar bill folded neatly by the curb. For a moment, time seems to stop. A little spark ignites inside you. It's a tiny thrill, A sudden gift from nowhere. Even today, in our world of digital payments and careful budgets, finding money feels special. It feels like luck, like a small, unexpected piece of magic. Now, imagine that feeling, but amplified 1,000 times. Go way back in time, to when humans lived in small groups, and life was hard. Resources were scarce. Food, tools, anything valuable was incredibly difficult to come by. There were no banks or stores as we know them. People lived off the land, traded, and survived day to day. So, when something valuable appeared out of nowhere, a piece of amber, a rare shell, or later, a glint of metal like gold or silver, it wasn't just a thing, it was a miracle. Here's the thing, these objects weren't just useful. They were seen as gifts from the gods, or spirits, or fate itself. They didn't feel like something earned, but something given. And because they were so rare, and often so beautiful, they carried a powerful sense of blessing. Finding them felt like being chosen. This feeling wasn't just about money as we think of it today. It was about fortune, abundance, and protection. These ancient finds became symbols, talismans people carried to bring more good things their way. This ancient idea that money or valuable things can just appear is why we still have sayings like, finding money is good luck. It's why people still pick up pennies they see on the ground, even if they're not worth much. It's why we throw coins in fountains and wish wells. We're tapping into that very old, very human belief that there's a magical side to getting wealth, that it's not always about hard work and calculation. Sometimes it's about being favored by unseen forces. Think about it like this. Your brain is always looking for patterns. If you find a $10 bill on the day of a big test, you might feel a little boost. You might even start to believe that finding money before tests brings good luck. That's because your brain connects the two events. It's a bit like a sports player who wears the same socks every game because they won once while wearing them. They know deep down it's probably not the socks, but it feels like it helps. That same kind of feeling, that link between an object and good fortune, is what people felt when they found ancient treasures. So, when you next find a loose coin or a forgotten bill, pause for a moment. It's more than just a small sum. It's a quiet echo of a time when the world felt full of hidden magic, when finding something precious was truly a wonder. It reminds us that even in our modern lives, there's still a tiny part of us that hopes for unexpected blessings, for a little bit of fortune to simply land in our path. It's a small, gentle reminder that sometimes the best things are found when you least expect them. Have you ever stopped to think why we always seem to look at what other people have? Not just their cool shoes or the latest phone, but something deeper, their money, or what their money can buy. Why does it feel so natural to compare our own financial situation to that of others, even people we don't know well? Here's the thing, this isn't a new idea. It's built deep into us, something almost ancient. For thousands of years, humans have looked around to understand their place in the world. In the very first groups of people, way back when, there were no banks or cash. But there was still wealth, like who had the best hunting tools, or the biggest share of the meat, or the warmest cave. Having more meant you were stronger, safer, and had a better chance of survival. People naturally noticed who had more and who had less. It was a way to figure out who was in charge, who was successful, and how well you were doing yourself. Over time, as societies grew and money was invented, those basic instincts didn't disappear. Money became a clear, visible way to show success and standing. Kings built giant palaces, pharaohs filled tombs with gold, and powerful families wore expensive clothes. They did this not just for comfort, but to show everyone how powerful they were. And ordinary people, seeing this, naturally started to compare. If that person has so much, they might think, what does that say about me? It's a simple human desire to understand where we fit in. Think about it like this. Imagine you're playing a video game, and you see another player who has much better gear, or more in-game currency. How do you feel? Maybe you feel a little push to get better yourself, or maybe you feel a bit jealous. It's the same idea in real life, but with something far more important than a game. When we see someone with a bigger house or a nicer car, our brains quickly try to place ourselves on that same scale. Are we winning? Are we losing? Are we just doing okay? This comparison can be a quiet voice in our heads, constantly whispering about what we have and what we don't. This isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes, seeing what others have can inspire us to work harder or set new goals. But here's the problem. It can also make us feel like we're not enough, even when we have everything we truly need. The endless comparison can become a trap, making us chase things we might not even want, just because someone else has them. It's like being in a never-ending race where the finish line keeps moving. So, when that feeling of comparing your money to someone else's pops up, just pause. Ask yourself what that comparison truly tells you. Does it speak to your real needs, your own happiness, or just a deep, ancient habit of checking where you stand in the crowd? Maybe true contentment isn't found in having more than others, but in truly understanding what is enough for you. And that's a thought that can bring a quiet sense of peace. Have you ever bought something and felt like you got a good deal? Or maybe you paid for something and wondered if it was really worth that much. When you pay for a new video game or a concert ticket, what makes that price feel right or wrong? Here's the thing. People have been asking this question for thousands of years. It's not just about how much money changes hands. It's about a much deeper idea, a belief about what is just and true in how we exchange things. In ancient times, and for many centuries that followed, the idea of a fair price was very important. It wasn't just about what someone was willing to pay, or what a seller wanted to charge. It was about something more like a moral value. Thinkers back then, like the ancient Greeks, believed there was a right price for everything. This right price considered the work put into making something, the materials used, and even the needs of the people involved. It wasn't about making the most money possible from every single sale. It was about creating a sense of balance and justice in the community. Later, in medieval Europe, this idea grew stronger. Philosophers and religious leaders talked a lot about something called the just price. They worried about people taking advantage of others. If someone was starving, it wouldn't be fair to sell them bread at an incredibly high price, just because they were desperate. The just price was meant to cover the seller's honest costs and allow them a decent living. But it also meant they shouldn't exploit someone's need. It was seen as wrong to profit too much from someone else's misfortune or a sudden shortage of goods. This belief shaped how people thought about business, trade, and even their own souls. It was less about pure economics and more about what was right. Imagine your bike breaks down, the chain snaps, and the wheel is wobbly. You take it to a bike shop. The person there spends an hour fixing it, and they use a new chain and some other small parts. What's a fair price for that repair? It's not just the cost of the new chain. It's also the mechanic's time, their skill, and the tools they use. But what if they tried to charge you an insane amount, like $1,000, for a simple repair? You would probably feel like that's not fair. Even if you needed your bike fixed urgently and might pay it, it wouldn't feel right. That gut feeling, that's your connection to this ancient idea of a fair price. You know the effort, the materials, and the skill involved, and you expect the price to reflect that in a reasonable way. So, here's what happened. This ancient belief in a just or fair price never really went away. Even today, when we talk about prices, we often feel this unspoken expectation. We might not think about ancient Greeks, but a part of us still looks for a sense of balance. We want to believe that the things we buy are truly worth what we pay, and that those who sell to us are not taking advantage. This deep, old idea reminds us that money is more than just numbers. It's woven into our sense of what is right, what is honest, and how we should treat each other in the big marketplace of life. It's a quiet whisper from the past, still shaping how we see the world and our place in it. It's a big question, right? When we look at history, it often seems like countries fight over land, resources, or power. And here's the thing, money is usually tied into all of that. But is it really money itself that causes the fighting? Or is it something else, something deeper, that money just brings out? Think about history. People have always valued things like food, fertile land, and useful tools. When one group had a lot of good land or easy access to valuable metals, other groups might want that too. This often led to battles. Fast forward, and nations started seeking control over trade routes. places where valuable goods like spices, silk, or gold were transported. Why? Because controlling these routes meant wealth and power. Later, it might have been about places with rich oil fields or minerals needed for new technologies. These are all things that bring in a lot of money. But the underlying issue isn't the money itself. It's the desire for the things money can buy: security, comfort, influence, and a better life for a group or a nation. When this desire clashes with another group's desire, or when one group feels threatened by another's wealth, that's when things can get dangerous. Imagine you and your friend are working on a big school project together. Let's say there's a special award for the best project, maybe a gift card to your favorite store. You both want that award, naturally. You work hard, but then, as the deadline gets close, you start to disagree. One of you wants to focus on the writing, the other on the visuals. You both think your idea is best for winning the gift card. That desire for the prize, that limited resource, starts to cause friction. It's not the gift card itself causing the argument. It's the desire for it, the competition, and how you both value it differently. In a bigger way, countries are like this. They might want control over oil fields or access to a certain port for trade. These are like the gift cards on a global scale. The real conflict comes from the intense desire for these things and the fear of not having enough, or the belief that someone else is taking what's yours. So, did money start wars? It's probably more accurate to say money is like a really powerful tool. It doesn't create the feelings of greed or fear, but it can make them much stronger. It can make people, or countries, act in ways they might not otherwise. Think of it like this. Money puts a spotlight on our deepest desires and our biggest fears. When there's a limited amount of something valuable, and many people want it, that's where tension grows. The true causes of war are often tangled up in human nature itself. Things like the struggle for power, the fear of losing what you have, or the belief that you're being treated unfairly. Money just gives a clear way to measure what's at stake. Understanding this helps us look beyond just the dollar signs. It makes us think about the choices people and nations make, and how we might find better ways to share resources and work together, instead of fighting over them. That's a much bigger and deeper question to consider. Have you ever heard someone say, "All rich people are greedy"? Or maybe you felt that way yourself when you see someone with a lot of money and fancy things. It's a common thought, and it's actually a really old one too. This idea that having a lot of wealth somehow makes a person automatically selfish or unwilling to share has been around for thousands of years. Think about it. Long ago, when there wasn't enough food or land for everyone, if one family or one person had a lot, it often meant others had very little. When the world felt like a pie, and someone had a huge slice, it was easy to believe they took more than they needed, maybe even unfairly. Back then, there weren't always fair rules about how money or resources were shared. Kings and powerful leaders often just took what they wanted, and their wealth grew while most people stayed poor. So, people saw this power and riches, and they connected it with unfairness and wanting too much. Many ancient stories and even religious texts from around the world have warned against the dangers of loving money too much. They often talked about how the pursuit of great wealth could lead people down a bad path, making them forget about kindness or sharing. It wasn't always about money itself being evil, but about how it could change a person's heart if they only focused on getting more and more. These old teachings often encouraged generosity and warned against storing up treasures for oneself while others suffered. This taught many generations that being very rich was something to be careful about, maybe even suspicious of. And that idea, once planted, tends to stick. Here's the thing. Our brains are always trying to make sense of the world, and sometimes they take shortcuts. Imagine you're playing a video game, and one player always has the rarest items and the highest score. It might be easy to think they're greedy because they have so much, even if they just played the game really well or got lucky. In real life, when we see someone with a big house or an expensive car, our minds might quickly jump to conclusions. We might compare what we have to what they have, and that feeling of difference can sometimes make us feel like they must be selfish for having so much. It's a natural human tendency to feel that way, but it doesn't mean it's always true. But here's a deeper thought. Does having a lot of money always mean someone is greedy? Think about people who have made a lot of money and then used it to build hospitals, start charities, or fund important research that helps many people. Their wealth allowed them to do big good things. So, the belief isn't really about the money itself. It's about what people do with the money and what their hearts truly value. This old belief reminds us to look deeper than just how much someone has. It asks us to consider whether a person's actions show kindness and generosity, no matter how much or how little they have. True greed, it turns out, is less about having a lot and more about a heart that only wants to keep for itself. Imagine a time long, long ago when no one carried money in their pockets. No coins jingled, no bills rustled. How did people get the things they needed? How did a family living by a river get shoes? Or how did a tailor get food to eat? Here's the thing. It wasn't about money then. It was about direct exchange. It was about farmers with fields full of wheat needing a new pair of sturdy sandals. So they would walk to the shoemaker and offer a sack of grain in exchange for shoes. The shoemaker, who couldn't eat leather, needed food, so the trade made sense. This simple act was called barter. People traded what they had in abundance for what they needed from someone else. This way of life shaped ancient societies in a deep way. It meant that every person's skill had a clear, immediate value. A farmer's skill was growing food. A builder's skill was creating shelter. A weaver's skill was making clothes. Each person specialized, becoming really good at one thing. And then they offered that skill or the products of that skill to others in the community. It built a strong sense of connection and reliance. You truly depended on your neighbor, not just for friendship, but for survival. But here's what made it tricky. What if the farmer had a great harvest of apples, but the person who could fix his leaky roof didn't want apples? Maybe the roofer already had a lot of fruit. This was the big problem with barter. Both people had to want exactly what the other person was offering. It wasn't always easy to find that perfect match. So, sometimes a trade couldn't happen, even if both people needed something. Think about it like this. Imagine you and your friends are working on a big group project for school. One friend is amazing at drawing. Another is super good at explaining ideas clearly. And you're really good at finding information online. Instead of everyone trying to do all three things, you each focus on your best skill. You trade your research skills for your friend's drawing skills and their clear explanations. No money is exchanged, but value is. You're giving your best and getting what you need from others' best. The project becomes better because you're working together, each contributing your unique crop of talent. So, for a long time, human worth was measured by what you could produce, by the skill of your hands, or the bounty of your land. This wasn't just about things. It was about the flow of usefulness between people. The farmer didn't just give wheat. They gave the energy and life that would sustain the shoemaker. The shoemaker didn't just give shoes. They gave comfort and protection for the farmer's feet, allowing them to keep working their fields. Even today, beneath all the complex layers of money and economics, the deepest truth remains. We are still trading our skills, our time, and our efforts for the things we need. The ancient belief that your value comes from what you offer to the world and how you connect with others still quietly guides us. Have you ever stopped to think about how things get shared in a group? Like, if you have a big pizza, who gets how many slices? Or if your team wins a game, how do you share the credit or the trophy? For a long time, humans have faced this same question, but on a much bigger scale. How do we share the wealth of our world? Not just money, but food, land, tools, and even knowledge. Ancient people had rules for this, often unwritten, but very powerful. They understood something deep. If one person or family got too much and others had nothing, the whole group could fall apart. It wasn't just about being nice. It was about survival. Imagine our earliest ancestors living in small bands, hunting and gathering. If someone caught a big animal, they didn't eat it all themselves. They shared it. Why? Because tomorrow, that hunter might be sick or unlucky and need others to share their food with them. It was like a hidden agreement. I share with you today, you share with me tomorrow. This wasn't charity. It was smart living. It built trust and kept everyone alive. Later, when people started farming and living in bigger villages, the idea of sharing changed a little, but it didn't go away. They still had concepts like the commons. This meant land, water, or forests that belonged to everyone. People could use these shared resources to feed their families, but they couldn't own them outright. Think of it like a public park or a school library. Everyone can use it, but no single person owns it all. This helped make sure everyone had some basic access to what they needed to live. Religion also played a big part. Many ancient faiths asked people to give a portion of their wealth, maybe a tenth of their crops or earnings, to their gods or temples. This tithe wasn't just for building fancy temples. Often, it was used to help the poor, care for widows and orphans, or build things that benefited the whole community, like roads or irrigation systems. So, giving back wasn't just a spiritual act, it was a practical way to redistribute wealth and keep society stable. Some ancient beliefs even frowned upon charging really high interest on loans, because they saw it as taking advantage of people in tough times. They wanted to protect the most vulnerable. Think about a healthy forest. It's not just about one giant tree taking all the sunlight and water. The roots of different trees often connect, sharing nutrients. The leaves fall and create soil for smaller plants. Animals spread seeds. If one part takes too much, the whole forest suffers. But if resources flow and are shared, the whole ecosystem thrives. Our human societies are a bit like that forest. The ancient rules for sharing wealth might seem old-fashioned, but they whisper an important truth. They remind us that our own well-being is deeply connected to the well-being of others. It's not just about what we can gather for ourselves. It's also about how we let what we have flow through our communities, creating balance and strength for everyone. And that's why these ancient ideas about sharing still matter today. They ask us to consider, what do we truly owe each other? Why old proverbs about money stick? Have you ever wondered why certain old sayings about money just refuse to go away? Phrases like, a penny saved is a penny earned, or money doesn't grow on trees. You hear them from your grandparents, your parents, maybe even your teachers. They've been around for hundreds of years, sometimes even longer. But why do these short bits of wisdom stick in our minds so strongly, even today, when the world is so different? Here's the thing. Our brains are built to look for patterns and simple rules. Life can be complicated, and money especially so. It can feel confusing, a bit scary, and sometimes even unfair. Long ago, before books were common and schools were for everyone, people needed ways to pass down important lessons. They needed guidance on how to live, how to work, and how to deal with something as powerful and tricky as money. So, they created proverbs. These were like tiny, memorable packages of wisdom. They were easy to remember, easy to share, and they usually pointed to a truth that many people had seen for themselves. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain as a dense forest. When you learn something new, it's like walking through the trees and making a small path. The more you walk that same path, the more you hear or think about that idea, the deeper the path gets. Eventually, it becomes a well-worn trail, easy to find and follow without even thinking. Old proverbs about money are like these deeply worn trails in our collective human mind. They've been walked by countless generations. Each time someone heard, "Waste not, want not," or "look before you leap," which applies to money too, that mental path got a little deeper. This isn't just a quaint idea. It's part of how our minds work. Our brains like to save energy. Instead of figuring out complex financial ideas from scratch every time, we reach for these ready-made thoughts. They act like mental shortcuts. If you're faced with a choice about spending, and you instantly think of save for a rainy day, your brain has found a quick answer based on age-old wisdom. It feels right, because so many people before you have found it useful. This saves your brain from doing a lot of hard thinking in the moment. It's a very human way to navigate a world that often feels too big to understand. But here's the interesting part. These proverbs aren't just about saving energy. They also carry the weight of human experience. They talk about fear of poverty, the desire for security, the temptation of quick riches, and the long road of hard work. They remind us that people have always worried about money, no matter the era. A farmer in ancient Rome worried about a bad harvest, much like someone today worries about losing a job. The fears and hopes might look different on the surface, but deep down, they are very similar. So, when an old proverb about money pops into your head, remember it's more than just words. It's an echo from the past, a little piece of the human story that has traveled through time. It shows us that while the world changes fast, some truths about how we feel and think about our resources and our future really don't change that much at all. They stick because they speak to something true and deeply human about how we try to find our way in the world. Have you ever felt like you really had to earn something, not just have it handed to you, like a spot on a team or respect from a group? This feeling connects to a very old idea: paying your dues. It's a belief that before you get something truly valuable, whether it's skill, status, or even just acceptance, you first need to put in the hard work, the effort, and sometimes even go through some struggle. It's like an unspoken agreement. You give your time and energy now, and the reward comes later. Think about how things used to be long ago. If you wanted to become a skilled craftsman, like a blacksmith or a tailor, you didn't just learn overnight. You started as an apprentice. You spent years helping the master, cleaning the shop, fetching tools, watching closely. You made mistakes. You worked long hours for little pay, or sometimes just for food and a place to sleep. This wasn't just about learning skills. It was about proving your commitment, building your character, and showing that you were serious. That long period of hard work and learning, often with little reward at first, was paying your dues. It showed you truly valued the craft and respected those who had come before you. This idea wasn't only for trades. In ancient societies, even becoming an accepted adult or a warrior often involved rites of passage, difficult tests or challenges you had to overcome. These trials weren't just physical. They were mental and emotional too. Passing them meant you had earned your place. It meant you belonged because you had faced what was required. The hardship made the achievement more meaningful. It wasn't about simply waiting your turn. It was about actively demonstrating your worth through effort and perseverance. Here's an example you might know. Imagine you're learning to play a musical instrument, like the guitar, or trying to get really good at a sport like basketball. You don't just pick it up and instantly become amazing. You practice scales over and over. Your fingers might hurt. You miss shots. You drop the ball. You practice when you're tired, when your friends are doing something fun. You show up to early morning practices or late night rehearsals. You fail many times before you succeed once. That often quiet, sometimes frustrating, but consistent effort. That's your version of paying your dues. And when you finally nail that difficult song or score that winning basket, it feels incredibly good. It's not just the success itself. It's the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing how much you put into it. The hard journey makes the destination truly special. This ancient belief reminds us that some of the deepest kinds of value and belonging aren't simply given. They are earned. It suggests that real growth, true skill, and lasting respect are often shaped by the challenges we face and the effort we invest. It's a quiet truth that tells us the struggle itself can be a gift, for it often changes us for the better, making us stronger and more appreciative of what we eventually achieve. Have you ever wondered why we sometimes look at someone with expensive things and think they must be important? Or why, in a game, having rare items makes other players respect you more? It's not just about what something can do. It's about what it means. For a long time, money was simply a way to trade for what you needed. You had extra wheat. Your neighbor had extra tools. You traded. Simple. But something changed, and money started to mean much more than just a fair exchange. In ancient times, what made you important wasn't usually how much shiny metal you had. It was about your skills. Were you a great hunter? A wise elder? Did you have a lot of healthy sheep or fertile land? These things showed your ability to survive, to provide, and to lead. Your status came from what you could do for your community, or what resources you directly controlled. But as groups of people grew bigger and spread out, trading became more complex. You couldn't always trade your specific goat for the exact amount of cloth you needed. People needed something universal, something everyone agreed had value, even if you couldn't eat it or build a house with it. So, money, in forms like shells, salt, or metal coins, became that common thing. Here's the thing. Once money became the main way to get everything, food, land, tools, even people's labor, accumulating a lot of it meant you could get more of everything. It meant you had power. If you had a lot of money, you could buy the best land, hire the best workers, or even fund armies. Slowly, money wasn't just a tool for buying things. It became a symbol of your ability to command resources and influence others. It showed your success, your skill, and often, your family's history of doing well. Think about it like this. Imagine a popular online game where you earn points or rare items for completing quests. The more points you have, or the rarer your items, the higher your level or rank becomes. Players start to judge each other based on these visible signs of progress. Someone with a high level and rare gear is often seen as more skilled, more dedicated, or more powerful, even if their actual personality is terrible. Money in the real world started to work similarly. It became a kind of score that showed how much influence or control a person had over their world. It became a quick way to size someone up without knowing their true character or abilities. This idea of money as a status symbol took root deep in our societies. It created a world where wealth wasn't just about comfort, but about respect, power, and even a sense of worth. We're still shaped by this ancient idea. We often judge others, and even ourselves, by how much money we have, or what expensive things we own. It's a quiet, powerful belief that whispers to us, telling us that more money means more importance. But it's important to remember that true value and the deepest kind of respect can't always be measured in coins. Have you ever wondered why some prices are fixed, like a candy bar in a store, but others, like at a garage sale, feel like they can change? Imagine a time, long before big supermarkets and barcode scanners, when almost everything you bought or sold was like that garage sale. People didn't just pick up an item and pay a set price. Instead, they talked about it. They debated. They bargained. This back-and-forth conversation, where buyers and sellers discuss and agree on a price, is what we call haggling. It's an ancient art, one of the first ways humans exchanged goods and services. Here's the thing. In very old times, there wasn't a universal money system. People often traded things directly. A farmer might offer a sack of grain for a weaver's cloth. How much grain for how much cloth? That wasn't a simple math problem. It depended on how much the farmer needed the cloth, how much effort the weaver put in, and what other options each person had. This led to a kind of dance, where each person tried to show their items worthwhile, also trying to get a good deal for themselves. Think of bustling ancient markets, like those you see in old movies or history books. People didn't just point and pay. They held items, turned them over, and talked. This rug is beautiful, but I can only offer this much, one person might say. But look at the dyes, the hours of work. The seller might reply, naming a higher price. It wasn't about tricking someone. It was about finding a middle ground, a price that both buyer and seller felt was fair enough for them. It was a way to truly value something, not just by a number, but by a shared agreement. It connected people directly in a way that just scanning a price tag doesn't. This human connection is a big part of why haggling still exists in many parts of the world, and even in some surprising places closer to home. Think about when you're trying to sell an old video game console online. Someone offers you a price. You might say, "I was hoping for a bit more." They might come back with a slightly higher offer. You might accept, or try one more time for a tiny bit extra. This is haggling in action. It's not just about the money. It's about perception. It's about how much tech-tea you want to sell it, and how much tech-tea they want to buy it. It's a little like two magnets, pushing and pulling, until they find a stable point where they can connect. It involves patience, understanding what the other person might be thinking, and knowing what something is truly worth to you. So, this ancient art of haggling tells us something deep about money and value. It reminds us that numbers on a tag are often just one idea of value. True value, in a human sense, can be something we arrive at together, through conversation and understanding. It's a quiet lesson that money isn't just a cold, hard fact, but often a bridge built between two people based on what they need and what they are willing to give. It's a reminder that even in transactions, there can be a space for connection and mutual respect. It's a question that makes you stop and think, isn't it? We live in a world where it often feels like everyone is trying to get more money, more stuff, more of everything. It seems natural, like breathing. But was it always like this? Did humans, since the very beginning, have this deep need to chase after endless wealth? Here's the thing. For most of human history, money as we know it didn't even exist. Imagine living in a time thousands of years ago. People lived in small groups. They hunted, they gathered plants, they built simple shelters. Their focus wasn't on getting rich. Their focus was on survival. Did they have enough food for the day? Was the fire warm? Was the community safe? Enough was a clear, simple idea. It meant having what you needed to live, to share, to keep your family and tribe going. They didn't save up gold coins. They didn't have bank accounts. If you had an extra deer hide, you might trade it for some berries from a neighbor. But this wasn't about building a huge pile of hides. It was about meeting an immediate need and strengthening a bond with your neighbor. The idea of endlessly accumulating goods just for the sake of having them wasn't really a part of their world. Their wealth was often measured in relationships, in shared stories, in how well they worked together. So when did this shift happen? When did enough become more? It started slowly, as societies grew and got more complex. When people began farming, they could produce more than just what they needed to eat right away. They could store grain. They could trade it. This led to different kinds of work, different kinds of communities. Then money came along, making trade much easier than swapping goats for tools. And that's when the idea of more really began to take root. Money is just numbers, right? And numbers can always go higher. Think about it like this. Imagine you're playing a video game. At the start, you might just want enough coins to buy that one cool sword. But once you have the sword, the game often tempts you to get even more coins, maybe for armor, or a bigger house, or just to see your score go up. There's no real end to it. You don't need all those coins, but the game encourages you to keep collecting. It feels good to see the number rise, even if it doesn't really change your gameplay after a certain point. That's a bit like how the chase for money can feel. Once we have enough for basic needs, the desire for more often isn't about survival anymore. It's about status, or comfort, or the feeling of winning, or maybe just habit. It's like a current that pulls us along. So, perhaps the deep, constant desire for more money isn't an ancient part of human nature. Maybe it's a belief, a habit, a way of thinking that grew stronger over time, alongside the very idea of money itself. It's something we've learned, generation after generation. And if we learned it, maybe we can also learn to pause, to question, and to truly understand what enough means for each of us in our own lives today. Perhaps true wealth isn't just about what we collect, but about what we value and share. The old idea of a blessing of wealth. Have you ever looked at someone who seems to have everything? Great clothes, a big house, fancy gadgets, and thought, wow, they must be really lucky? Or maybe you've even heard someone say that person is blessed. This idea that wealth is a blessing isn't new at all. In fact, it's one of the oldest money beliefs out there, stretching back thousands of years. Think about ancient times. Long before banks or even printed money, life was hard. People depended on good weather for their crops, healthy animals, and safe journeys. If a family had a bountiful harvest, healthy children, and many flocks, it wasn't just seen as good luck. It was often believed to be a direct sign from the gods, or from whatever higher power people believed in. They thought, the gods favor this family. They must be good people. Wealth then became a visible sign of being chosen or blessed. Of course, this wasn't always fair. A drought could ruin any farm, no matter how good the farmer was. But the belief was powerful. Wealth meant divine approval, and poverty meant the opposite. This idea shows up in old stories and religious texts worldwide, shaping how societies saw their rich and poor. Here's the thing. This ancient idea still whispers in our minds today, even if we don't realize it. When a famous athlete signs a huge contract, or a movie star makes millions, do we sometimes think of it as pure talent and hard work? Or do we also quietly add in a little bit of blessing or destiny? It's like when you're playing a video game and you find an incredibly rare item. You worked for it, sure, but there's also a feeling that the game blessed you with that drop, almost like fate. You might even feel a little bit more special just for getting it. But here's the problem with thinking of wealth as only a blessing. If it's just a blessing, what does that say about people who don't have much? Does it mean they aren't blessed or are less worthy? This thinking can make us judge others unfairly. It also makes us feel powerless, as if our future is up to a mysterious force, not our choices, efforts, or community support. This old idea also overlooks many other things. It forgets the effort people put in. It ignores smart decisions, and sometimes plain old random chance. It doesn't account for systems that make it harder for some to succeed, no matter how hard they try. And it doesn't consider that true richness in life might not be measured in money at all. So, next time you see someone with a lot of money, or feel lucky yourself, pause. Remember this ancient idea of a blessing. Think about what truly makes a person valuable, and what really makes a life rich. Is it just the things they own? Or something deeper, something earned, shared, or felt within? It's a deep question that shifts our focus from just money to something far more meaningful. Have you ever stopped to think about why we buy things? Not just food or clothes we need, but those things we really don't have to own? Like the latest sneakers, a fancy watch, or even a popular brand of soda? It's a quiet question, but the answer goes deep, to an old human part of us. Here's the thing. Sometimes we spend money not just for what an item does, but for what it says. It speaks about us, showing who we are or wish to be. We want to impress. We want to fit in. Maybe we even want to stand out in a good way. This impulse isn't new at all. It's as ancient as money itself. Think back to ancient kings, thousands of years ago. They wore robes of rare fabrics, bright jewels, and carried golden staffs. Why? Not because it helped them rule better. They showed their power, wealth, and status. It was a silent message. Look at me. I am important. People saw the shiny things and understood. It was like a silent language. This wasn't just about kings. Even in smaller communities, people used what they owned to signal their place. A family might have the biggest house, the most cattle, or beautiful pottery. These weren't just practical. They were symbols. They told everyone, we are doing well. We are worthy. This helped them gain respect and trust. Humans are social creatures. For a long time, how others saw us was a matter of survival. Being part of the group, being respected, meant safety. So we used objects to help achieve that. Consider a simple example from today. 2 pairs of sneakers in your school hallway. One is a well-known, expensive brand, seen on celebrities. The other is less famous, maybe just as comfortable, but cheaper. For many, choosing the expensive brand isn't just about comfort or quality. It's about belonging. It's about showing you're in the loop, that you have good taste, or that you can afford what's popular. It's like a uniform saying, I'm part of this club. This isn't necessarily wrong. It's just how we are wired. It's a deep part of our social instincts. We want to be seen. We want to be valued. Sometimes, we reach for things outside ourselves, like a new item, to get that feeling. But here's a quiet thought to end on. While things can help us feel a certain way for a moment, the true feeling of value, of belonging, of being seen, often comes from within. It comes from kindness, from curiosity, from honest effort. Those are the things that truly impress, not just for a fleeting moment, but in a way that truly lasts. The oldest wisdom often tells us that what we carry in our hearts matters more than what we carry in our hands. Understanding why we try to impress with things can help us remember that quiet truth. Have you ever held an old coin? Not just a quarter, but something truly ancient, maybe from a grandparent's collection, or a picture of one from a history book. It feels solid, right? Like a small piece of the past you can touch. But here's the thing. These old coins aren't just pieces of metal with a number. They're like tiny time capsules, whispering stories about the people who made them, the lands they lived in, and what they believed. Think about it. Why do we put certain images on our money today? We see presidents, symbols of freedom, important buildings. It's not just random. These pictures show what we as a country think is important. Now, imagine doing that thousands of years ago, when most people couldn't read. Coins were like little billboards, spreading ideas and power. In ancient times, money wasn't just about buying stuff. It was a way for rulers to show off. A king would put his face on a coin, making sure everyone knew who was in charge. Sometimes, it was a god or goddess they worshipped, reminding everyone of their faith. Or maybe it was a powerful animal, like a lion or an eagle, showing strength. These images told a story. They said, "This is who we are. This is what we value." For example, the ancient Greeks often put images of their gods and goddesses on their coins. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, might be on a coin from Athens. That tells you that wisdom and knowledge were important to the Athenians. On the other hand, the Romans often showed their emperors, sometimes even wearing a laurel wreath, which meant victory. That shows how much they valued power and conquest. And that's why it matters. You can learn about a whole civilization just by looking at their pocket change. It's a bit like how we choose what goes on our phone backgrounds or what logos we wear on our clothes. We pick things that mean something to us, or things we want to connect with. An ancient coin did the same thing for an entire society. It showed what they thought was valuable, what they believed, and who they looked up to. Consider a simple scientific idea. When light travels through a prism, it breaks into different colors. A coin is like a prism for a culture. You put the light of their values through it, and it shows you the separate colors, their leaders, their gods, their hopes, their fears. What they chose to put on that small piece of metal tells you so much about their minds, their souls, and the rules they lived by. It shows you the hidden beliefs that shaped their world. So, when you see an old coin, try to look beyond its age or its worth. See it as a silent messenger from the past. It carries the weight of ancient ideas, not just of silver or gold. It reminds us that even something as simple as money has always been more than just a way to trade. It's been a mirror, showing us what people treasured most and what they wanted to tell the future about themselves. And in a quiet way, those old messages still echo today, reminding us of the deep roots of our own beliefs about money and power. Have you ever felt truly stuck? Like there was something you had to do, no matter what, and you couldn't just walk away? Maybe it was a huge homework project, or a promise you made that felt too big to keep. For most of us, these feelings pass. But what if being stuck lasted your whole life? What if it meant losing your freedom? Here's the thing. For a very long time in human history, owing money could literally make you someone else's property. We call this debt slavery. It wasn't about being criminals. It was about survival. Imagine a family hits a really bad patch. Maybe their crops fail, or a family member gets very sick and they need medicine. They have no money. So, they go to someone rich and ask for help. The rich person gives them food or money, but there's a catch. To pay it back, they have to work. Not just for a little while, but sometimes for years, or even for the rest of their lives. And sometimes, their children would inherit this debt too. It was a chain passed down through generations. Think about places like ancient Rome or Mesopotamia, which is where Iraq is today. In those times, debt slavery was common. If you couldn't pay what you owed, you weren't just in trouble with the law. You could become a servant, a laborer, or even be sold. Your body, your time, your very future belonged to the person you owed money to. It was a harsh reality, a constant shadow hanging over people's lives. Your freedom wasn't a right. It was something you could lose, often because of bad luck or a desperate choice. It's like this. Imagine you love drawing. You spend hours creating amazing art, but then you desperately need a very special kind of rare paper and paints to finish a big competition piece. You can't afford them. Someone offers to buy them for you, but only if you promise that every drawing you ever make from that day forward belongs to them. You get to draw, yes, but you don't own your own creations. You can't sell them. You can't even give them away. They are theirs forever. You're still doing what you love, but your art, your talent is no longer truly yours. It's tied to that debt, that promise. That's a bit like how it felt to be in debt slavery. You were working, perhaps even for your basic needs, but you weren't working for yourself. And that's why this idea is so deep. It makes us think about freedom. Today, we don't have physical chains from debt in most places, but the pressures of money, the feeling of having to work, or the worry about bills, they can still feel like invisible chains. We might not be owned by a person, but sometimes it feels like we're owned by our responsibilities, our jobs, or the sheer amount of things we need to pay for. Understanding how extreme debt used to be can help us see how much our sense of freedom today is still connected to our money. It's a quiet reminder that true freedom isn't just about what you can do, but about what you don't have to do. It's about having choices, even small ones. Have you ever thought about how tiny drops of water, one by one, can slowly fill up a bucket? Or how a single grain of sand isn't much on its own, but beaches are made of billions of them? It's the same with saving money, especially when we talk about just a little bit at a time. It might not seem like much at first. $1 here, a few dollars there, maybe what's left over from your allowance. But here's the thing. Those small amounts, put aside regularly, hold a quiet, amazing power. It's not about how much you save all at once. It's about saving something, anything, steadily over time. This isn't a new idea. It's a very old one, something people have understood for thousands of years. Think about ancient communities. They didn't have banks like we do today, but they knew about good years and bad years. A farmer, after a good harvest, wouldn't just eat all their crops. They would carefully put aside a small portion of seeds, not because they were greedy, but because they knew winter was coming. They knew that small pile of seeds meant food for the family next year. It meant survival. It was a belief in foresight, in planning for what might come. This ancient wisdom, this quiet habit of saving small amounts, is woven into many old stories and traditions. It speaks to patience. It speaks to discipline. It's about trusting that steady, small efforts can create something strong and lasting. It's about building a little bit of security, step by tiny step. It shows a deep understanding of how the world works, that big things often grow from small beginnings. Think about a tiny stream flowing down a mountain. At first, it's just a trickle. You wouldn't think it could do much. But day after day, year after year, that small stream keeps moving. It slowly, gently carves away at rock. Over thousands of years, that tiny trickle, with consistent movement, can help create a massive canyon. The Grand Canyon, for example, started with small, persistent forces working over incredible spans of time. Your savings are a bit like that stream. Each dollar, each $5, is like a drop of water. It doesn't look like much on its own. But when you add those drops together consistently, they begin to carve out something real for your future. They build up, they grow. This isn't magic or some tricky financial secret. It's just the power of consistency. It's the understanding that even the smallest action, repeated over time, can lead to powerful, lasting change. This isn't about becoming a millionaire overnight, or suddenly having enough money for everything you could ever want. It's about a feeling. It's about knowing you have a little bit set aside, a small cushion, a kind of quiet safety net. Having even a little saved brings a deep, calm kind of peace. It means you're not always reacting to what happens to you. You have a small choice, a little bit of freedom, because you prepared. You don't have to worry as much if something unexpected comes up. Saving a little isn't just about money in a jar. It's about teaching yourself patience. It's about building trust in yourself. It's about believing in your own future and knowing that you can build something meaningful, brick by tiny brick. It's about understanding that even the smallest steps, taken with quiet determination, can lead to the greatest journeys. Have you ever wondered why, even in ancient times, some people had more or lived a little better while others struggled? It might seem unfair, but it wasn't always about who worked harder. It often came down to something else: value. Not just how much effort you put in, but how much your particular skill or job was needed and how rare it was. Think about it this way. In ancient societies, survival was a daily challenge. People needed food, shelter, and protection. So, the jobs that directly helped with these vital needs were often seen as more important. And if a job required very special skills or a long time to learn, it paid more. For example, a common farmer worked incredibly hard, sun up to sundown. Their work fed everyone, but many people could farm. It didn't take years of specialized schooling. So, while their work was essential, it wasn't rare. Now, picture a skilled metalworker. This person knew how to dig ore from the ground, how to build a furnace hot enough, and how to hammer and shape metal into tools, weapons, or jewelry. This knowledge was like a secret art. It took years of apprenticeship, of learning from a master, to gain these skills. Not many people could do it, and a good metal axe or a strong sword was incredibly valuable for farming, hunting, or fighting. So, a metalworker earned more because their skill was rare and highly demanded. It was similar for scribes, the people who could read and write. In a world where most people couldn't, a scribe was vital. They kept records, wrote laws, and copied important texts. Their brains held the knowledge of the past. That unique ability made them powerful and well paid. Or consider a physician, an ancient doctor. Healing the sick, especially in a time without modern medicine, was a life or death skill. If you could save lives, your talent was extremely valuable. Another reason some jobs paid more was danger. Think about soldiers or warriors. Their job was to fight and potentially die for their people. They put their lives on the line every day. So, they were often honored and compensated well. Or sailors who embarked on long, dangerous sea voyages, risking storms, pirates, and unknown lands. Their bravery and skill in navigating the vast oceans were highly prized. Here's a simple way to think about it today. Imagine you're building a complex robot. Many people can help by bringing parts or screwing things together. That's good work. But the person who designed the robot, who understands the intricate coding and the physics, that person needs deep, specialized knowledge. They spent years learning it. If only a few people in the world can design that specific robot, their skill is rare and in high demand. And so, their value is higher, and they get paid more. It's not that the other work isn't important, but the rare, complex skill holds more power. So, in ancient times, the jobs that paid more weren't always the ones that required the most physical effort. They were often the ones that required a rare mind, a unique skill that took years to master, or a willingness to face great danger. It was about how much a society needed that specific ability, and how few people could actually provide it. This idea that rarity and vital skill make things more valuable still shapes how we see worth and payment in our world today, even if we don't always think about its ancient roots. Have you ever stopped to think why we care so much about what others think of our stuff? Why does it feel good when someone notices something new you have, like cool shoes or a new jacket? It's not just about looking nice. Not really. Sometimes, it's about showing something deeper about ourselves, even without meaning to. For a very, very long time, how you looked, especially what you owned, wasn't just about fashion. It was like a secret language. It was a way to show who you were, how much power you had, and where you fit in the world. This is the old pressure to look rich, even if you weren't actually loaded with money. Think about ancient kings and queens. They didn't just wear crowns with jewels because they liked shiny things. Their clothes were dyed with really rare colors. They lived in huge, grand palaces. This wasn't just for comfort. It was a message they were sending to everyone. It told people, I am powerful. I have lots of resources. I am important. In many old societies, if you looked wealthy, people treated you differently. You might get better land, or a better marriage, or a lot more respect. It was almost like a shortcut to being trusted. People often just assumed you were wise or capable if you could afford expensive things. And here's the thing. Sometimes, this was all just an act. People would spend huge amounts of money on one fancy item, even if they were struggling behind the scenes. They felt they needed to keep up appearances because their survival, or their family standing in the community, depended on it. It was a kind of strategy, not just showing off for fun. This is what I found. It's kind of like a male peacock. A male peacock has those amazing giant tail feathers. They're heavy, they're hard to hide, and they make it tougher to run away from other animals that want to eat him. So why does he have them? Because those big, beautiful feathers tell a story without any words. They tell a female peacock, "Look at me. I'm so strong and healthy, I can carry these big flashy feathers around. I'm really good at surviving, even with this extra weight." It's a way of showing strength and health. In a similar way, ancient people used expensive clothes or rare metals to show how fit they were for society. They were saying, "I have access to lots of good things. I am strong. I am worthy." So, that feeling we sometimes get today, wanting to show off something new, it's not new at all. It's like a whisper from a very old part of our human story. It's the echo of a time when looking strong, looking capable, looking like you had resources was really, really important. Even today, we see this happen. People buy expensive cars or brand-name clothes. Sometimes it's because they genuinely like them. But sometimes it's because of that ancient whisper, that deep desire to signal something to the world, to be seen in a certain way. Maybe understanding this old pressure helps us choose our own path, rather than just following a very old, unthinking rule. It helps us decide what truly matters to us, deep down. Have you ever stopped to think about why some people have a lot and others have very little? It's a question that has puzzled people for thousands of years. And sometimes you might hear someone whisper, or even loudly declare, that poverty is somehow a test, or maybe even a punishment from a higher power. This idea that being poor is a result of something bad a person did is actually one of the oldest beliefs about money and wealth. It's a very deep thought to unpack. But here's the thing. This way of thinking has shaped how societies treat people for centuries. In many ancient cultures, people truly believed that if you were rich, it meant you were blessed. It was a sign that the gods or the universe favored you. And if you were poor, well, that was seen as a sign of divine displeasure, like a punishment for past wrongs, either in this life or even in a life before. Think about it. If you believed this, it would make it easier to ignore the struggles of people who had less. You might think they deserve it or it's their fate. This belief made it easier to not feel bad for those suffering. It made it okay to not help. It built walls between people. But is that really true? Is life a giant cosmic scoreboard where money shows if you're winning or losing, good or bad? Think about a simple experiment in science class. You set up a test, right? You want to see how different things affect the outcome. Maybe you're growing plants, and some get sunlight, some don't. The plant without sunlight isn't being punished for being a bad plant. It just doesn't have the resources it needs to grow well. Its environment is different, and that's kind of how poverty often works. It's not usually about individual fault. It's more about the ground rules of the game. Some people are born into places where opportunities are scarce. They might not have access to good schools, or healthy food, or safe homes. These are things they didn't choose. It's like starting a race, but some runners have to carry heavy backpacks, while others have empty ones. The person with the backpack isn't slower because they're bad at running. They're slower because of the extra weight they carry. So, when we look at poverty, it's not about judging people. It's about looking at the systems. It's about understanding how things like where you are born, your family's history, or even things like natural disasters can hugely impact a person's life. It makes us think about what we, as a society, can do to change the rules of the game, so that everyone has a fair chance to thrive. It teaches us to look beyond quick judgments, and instead, see the whole picture. And that's why it matters deeply how we think about money, and who has it, and who doesn't. Have you ever stopped to wonder what you would do if you suddenly had a huge amount of money? Or maybe what your best friend would do? It's a question that people have thought about for thousands of years, in almost every culture across the globe. They believe that money isn't just about buying things. It's like a very special kind of test, a test of who you truly are, deep down inside. This ancient idea says that money doesn't actually change your character. Instead, it reveals it. It's like a spotlight. Think of it this way. If you're a kind and generous person, Having more money might make you even more able to help others, to be more generous. But if you have a habit of being selfish or dishonest, having more money might just make those parts of you bigger, harder for anyone, even yourself, to ignore. Many old stories, wise sayings, and philosophical thoughts from different times and places touch on this. People back then saw money as something that could either bring out the best in a person or, sadly, the worst. It wasn't that money created greed, for example. But if a bit of greed was already there, money often gave it a huge stage to perform on, and that's why it matters so much. Here's the thing. Think of money like a magnifying glass. You know, those lenses that make tiny things look much bigger? Money is like that for your personality. It doesn't put new traits into you. It just takes whatever traits are already inside you, big or small, good or not so good, and makes them clearer, easier for everyone to see. So, if you have a very big heart and you care about others, money might make your kindness and generosity shine brighter than ever before. But if you tend to be a bit unfair or a little bit unkind, money might make those habits seem much, much worse to the people around you. Consider this example from everyday life. Imagine two different people. Both of them find a crisp $100 bill on the sidewalk. One person might immediately think, "Wow, I can finally buy that new video game I've been wanting," or maybe some fancy sneakers. The other person might think, "Oh, this is amazing. Now I can treat my family to a really nice dinner, or maybe buy some food for the local animal shelter." Neither choice is wrong, but this simple example shows how money offers different opportunities and how people react to those opportunities based on what they value. It shows what's important to them. And sometimes, even having a lack of money can test your character. Do you stay honest even when times are tough? Do you still try to be fair and thoughtful to others, even when you're struggling? So, money itself isn't good or bad. It's just paper, or numbers on a screen, a tool. But how we handle it, how we react to it, how we use it, that's where our true selves often show up. It's a deep mirror, reflecting back what's already there inside us. And understanding this old belief can help us think about our own choices. What kind of person do we want that mirror to show? It's not about how much money you have or don't have. It's about who you become when money enters the picture, or even when it leaves. That's the real test, and it's something worth quietly thinking about. Have you ever stopped to wonder how people got what they needed long, long ago, before there were coins or bills? Imagine a time when you couldn't just buy a new tool or a bag of grain. How did communities share and survive? The answer, for many, was something we still do today, but in a very different way: gifts. But these weren't just gifts like the ones you get on your birthday. This was a deep, powerful system of exchange, a way to build a world without the need for prices or quick transactions. It was called a gift economy. Here's the thing. In these ancient societies, when someone gave you something valuable, perhaps a beautifully crafted spear, or a large basket of harvested food, it wasn't seen as a simple one-time handout. Instead, it created a connection. It meant you now had a social obligation, a silent promise to give something back in return. Not right away, but at some future point. It was like a long, slow dance of generosity and gratitude. This wasn't about paying for something. It was about trust. If you received a gift, you were now tied to the giver. You were expected to reciprocate, to repay the kindness, perhaps with something entirely different, but of similar social weight. Maybe you'd offer your skills in building, or help protect their family during a difficult time. This system built deep bonds between people and even between entire communities. It created alliances. It showed who was respected, who could be relied upon. The act of giving wasn't just about sharing stuff. It was about sharing power, building status, and weaving the fabric of society. Think about it like this. Imagine you're at school, and your friend lends you their favorite hoodie because you forgot yours and it's cold. They don't ask for money, or expect you to give it back that same hour. But later, maybe when they're struggling with a math problem, you spend extra time helping them, even though you don't have to. Or maybe you bring them a snack because you know they like it. This isn't a direct trade, is it? You're not buying help. you're responding to a kindness, maintaining that bond, that feeling of wanting to give back, to balance the scales of generosity. That's a little echo of the ancient gift economy. It's about more than just things. It's about the relationship. And that's why it matters today. This old way of trading reminds us that true wealth might not always be counted in numbers. It's often found in the unseen threads that tie us together: trust, mutual respect, and the quiet understanding that when we give freely, we're not just losing something, we're actually creating something far more valuable. We're building connection, community, and a sense of belonging. It makes us wonder what we've gained, and perhaps what we've lost, in our quick, cash-based world. Maybe the oldest way to trade also taught us the deepest truths about being human. Have you ever wondered why we feel a pull to help someone who is struggling? Or why, across thousands of years, people have chosen to share what they have, even when they didn't have much? This isn't just a modern idea. The urge to give, to show kindness, and to share resources goes back to the very start of human history. At its core, charity is about helping others who need it. It's about looking at someone less fortunate and deciding to share a piece of your world with them. But for ancient people, it wasn't just a nice thought. It was often deeply connected to their survival, their beliefs, and their sense of purpose. Think about the earliest communities. Life was hard. There were no hospitals, no social safety nets. If one person got sick or lost their crops, the whole group was weaker. So, helping others wasn't just good. It was a way to keep the community strong. It was like making sure all the parts of a machine were working so the whole thing wouldn't break down. Many ancient societies believed that giving to the poor, or supporting the needy, was a way to please their gods or spirits. In ancient Egypt, for example, a pharaoh was expected to care for their people, especially the most vulnerable. It was part of their sacred duty. Doing good deeds was thought to help a person in the afterlife. The idea was that how you treated others here on earth would decide your fate later. Then came the rise of major religions. Many of these faiths made charity a central part of life, often directly linked to money or possessions. In ancient Israel, people were commanded to leave some crops in their fields for the poor to gather. They were also expected to give a tenth of their income, known as a tithe, to support religious life and help those in need. Later, in Christianity, giving to the poor was seen as giving directly to God. In Islam, there's a required annual payment called zakat, a percentage of one's wealth, which is specifically for the poor and needy. These weren't just suggestions. These were ancient rules, deeply held beliefs that shaped how people thought about their money and how they used it. Here's the thing. People weren't just giving because of a rule or fear of punishment. There was often a deep sense of connection, a belief that everyone was part of a larger family or community. Imagine a classroom where someone forgets their lunch. If a friend shares theirs, both people feel better. The one who was hungry gets to eat, and the one who shared feels a warm glow inside. That feeling, that sense of connection and well-being from helping, is a very old human experience. It's part of our psychology. Our brains are actually wired to feel good when we cooperate and help others. It releases chemicals that make us feel happy and bonded. So, when we see a food drive today, or donate to a cause online, we are connecting to something very, very old. We are echoing those ancient beliefs that taught us to care for one another. It's a quiet whisper from history, reminding us that sharing our resources, our time, and our kindness is not just a nice act, but a fundamental part of what it means to be human. It's a timeless idea woven into the fabric of human life that we are all in this together. Have you ever wondered why some families can talk about almost anything, share their deepest thoughts, but then go completely quiet when it comes to money? It's like there's an invisible wall around the topic. This isn't just about being private. It's often about secrets, big or small, that families keep hidden. So, why do they do it? Here's the thing. Money is more than just numbers or coins. For many people, it connects deeply to their feelings of safety, their worth, and even their dreams for the future. It's also tied to fears. Fear of not having enough, fear of being judged, or fear of losing what they have. When something is so personal and tied to such big feelings, it can be really hard to talk about openly. Sometimes, A family keeps money a secret to protect someone. Maybe they don't want their children to worry about a tough time, or they want to surprise them with something big later. Other times, it comes from a feeling of shame, like if they've made mistakes with money, or if they have very little. And sometimes, it's just how they were raised. Their parents never talked about money, so they don't either. Think about history for a moment. For thousands of years, having resources, food, land, gold was directly tied to survival. If you had a lot, you might hide it to avoid bandits or rivals. If you had very little, you might hide that too, to avoid being seen as weak or an easy target. This ancient need for protection, this idea that money equals power or vulnerability, has quietly passed down through generations. People learned to keep their financial cards close to their chest. It became a way of guarding their place in the world, or just keeping themselves safe. It's a very old pattern, wrapped up in how humans have always tried to survive and thrive. Imagine a squirrel. It spends all autumn gathering nuts. It doesn't pile them all up in one visible spot. No, it buries them in many different hidden places. Why? To protect its future food. It doesn't want other animals to know where its stash is, or to steal it. It does this because it's a matter of survival, a deep natural instinct. Humans, in a way, have a similar instinct about our money. We bury our savings, our income, our debts, not in the ground, but often in silence. We do it to feel safe, to feel like we have control over our own future, our own food supply for tomorrow, or for an unexpected bad weather day. But here's the problem with secrets. Even those meant to protect, they can sometimes weigh heavy. They can create invisible distances between people in a family, even when they live under the same roof. The truth is, money secrets often come from a place of trying to shield others, to keep them from worry or pain. Yet, the act of hiding can sometimes lead to misunderstandings, or even make the path harder to navigate when unexpected money problems arise. Understanding why these secrets exist helps us see them not just as hidden truths, but as a reflection of our deepest human fears and hopes. Maybe, just maybe, when a family chooses to open up about money, even a little bit, it can start to build a different kind of strength. It's a brave step, a way of saying, we face this together. And in that shared understanding, there can be a true sense of relief and a deeper connection. After all, money is just a tool. It's how we handle it, and how we talk or don't talk about it, that truly shapes our lives and our relationships. Have you ever thought about what happens to someone's special things, or even their money, after they're gone? It's a quiet question, but a really old one. For thousands of years, people have had to figure out how to pass things down. This is what we call inheritance. It's not just about a will or a bank account. It's about more than just money or land. It's about how families keep going, how stories are told through generations, and how power or even problems get passed on. In ancient times, like when people lived in small tribes or when mighty kings ruled, inheritance wasn't just a polite custom. It was the bedrock of how society worked. If a farmer died, who got his tools, his land, his animals? If there weren't clear rules, chaos could break out. Families might starve or even fight. So, people made up strict rules. Sometimes, everything went to the oldest son. This was a common rule, called primogeniture. It meant the family name, the land, and the power stayed together, usually with the firstborn male. Daughters might get a dowry when they married, but the main family wealth often bypassed them. This wasn't about being fair in the way we think today. It was about survival, about keeping the family strong and preventing it from being split into tiny pieces, too small to live on. Think about it like this. Imagine your family has a really old recipe, maybe for a special cake or a dish. This recipe isn't just a list of ingredients. It's got scribbled notes from your grandmother, maybe a stain from a time your dad tried to bake it. It's been passed down, not just the words, but the stories, the memories, even the specific way you're supposed to stir the batter. When that recipe is passed to you, you're not just getting instructions. You're getting a piece of your family's history, their taste, their gatherings. You inherit not just the thing, the recipe, but also all the meaning and tradition tied to it. And here's the thing. Just like that recipe carries old traditions, financial inheritance carries old rules and beliefs. Even today, families argue over who gets what. Sometimes, these arguments aren't just about the value of an item. They're about old family feelings, about who was favored, who felt left out, or who felt a duty to protect what was passed down. These silent rules, born from ancient needs to survive and keep families together, still whisper in our modern lives. They shape how we view wealth, how we share, and even how we sometimes struggle with what we inherit, whether it's a valuable old coin or simply a way of thinking about money. What we inherit is never just stuff. It's a piece of the past, still shaping our present. Imagine a world long, long ago. There were no apps, no credit cards, just coins made of metal, or sometimes just simple goods traded directly. People worked hard for their money, just like today. But did they ever wake up and wonder if their money was suddenly worth less? Did they worry if the loaf of bread that cost 1 coin yesterday would cost 2 coins tomorrow? The simple answer is yes, they absolutely did. Here's the thing about money. Its value isn't just about the metal it's made from, or the numbers on a screen. Its value is about what it can buy. When prices for everything start to rise, and your money buys less and less, that's what we call inflation. It's when the buying power of your dollar, or your ancient coin, shrinks. So, how did this happen in ancient times? Often, it was because rulers needed more money, maybe for a big war, or to build a giant temple, or just to pay their soldiers. They couldn't just print more paper money like we do today. What they often did was much more sneaky. They messed with the coins. Take the Roman Empire, for example. For a long time, Roman coins were made of good silver. But then, some emperors started taking those silver coins and mixing in cheaper metals, like copper. They would make the coin look the same on the outside, but it had less real silver inside. This meant they could make many more coins from the same amount of silver, or even less. What happened next? People might not have noticed right away, but soon, shopkeepers and farmers figured it out. They realized that these new coins, even though they looked similar, didn't feel as good. They started asking for more coins for the same amount of grain or cloth, because there were suddenly more coins floating around. But the amount of grain or cloth hadn't changed. The prices went up. It's like if everyone in your town suddenly had twice as much money, but there were still only the same number of cool new video games. The price of those games would shoot up, because everyone could afford to pay more for them. Think about it like this. Imagine your favorite snack costs $1. If the store suddenly printed millions of snack dollars and handed them out to everyone, what would happen? Soon, that snack might cost 10 snack dollars, because everyone has so many of them. And the store still only has a limited number of snacks. The value of each snack dollar just dropped. That's a bit like what happened when ancient rulers debased their coins. So, the worry about money losing its power is a feeling that connects us to people who lived thousands of years ago. It wasn't just about losing wealth. It was about trust. Trust in the stability of their world. Trust in their leaders. And trust that their hard work would mean something today and tomorrow. The feeling of prices always climbing, of things becoming harder to afford, is a deeply human worry that has echoed through time, from the markets of ancient Rome to our neighborhoods today. It reminds us that money, at its core, is always about a shared belief in its value and a hope for a stable future. Have you ever heard someone say, "If you just work hard enough, you'll get rich"? It's a powerful idea. It sounds fair, right? Like a simple equation. Hard work equals wealth. But here's the thing. This belief, as old as time, is a bit more complicated than it seems. For thousands of years, people have held on to this idea. From ancient farmers tilling their land to today's entrepreneurs building companies, the thought is, if you pour your sweat and effort into something, success, especially money, will surely follow. It's about effort directly leading to reward. It makes sense on the surface. We all want to believe that our effort matters, that it will pay off. And it often does, in many ways. This idea has deep roots. Think about old proverbs, stories told around campfires in ancient villages. They often talked about the diligent ant and the lazy grasshopper, or tales of heroes who earned their riches through great labor. In many old cultures, hard work wasn't just a way to live. It was seen as a moral good. It showed character. Later, in some parts of the world, especially during the time of the Industrial Revolution, this belief grew even stronger. People moved to cities, working long hours in factories, always with the hope that their endless toil would lead to a better life, not just for them, but for their children. It became a core part of what we now call the American dream, the idea that anyone, through sheer hard work, can make it big, no matter where they start. It gives people hope, a powerful driving force. But let's think about it with a simple example. Imagine a farmer. Let's call her Elara. Elara wakes up before dawn every single day. She plows her fields perfectly, plants her seeds with care, and waters them on schedule. She works harder than anyone else in her village. She tends to her crops tirelessly, pushing through sun, wind, and aching muscles. She does everything right, based on the belief Elara should have the best harvest, right? She should be wealthy from her hard work. But what if a terrible drought hits her region? Or a flood washes away her fields? Or a sudden pest outbreak destroys her plants, even with all her care? Elara still worked incredibly hard, maybe harder than ever, trying to save her crops. But the wealth she expected, the big harvest, might not come. External things outside her control, got in the way. So, what does this tell us? It doesn't mean hard work is useless. Far from it. Hard work is incredibly important. It builds skill, character, and it often is necessary for any kind of success. It gives us a sense of purpose and dignity. But it's also a reminder that wealth, or any big outcome, isn't always a simple, direct result of effort alone. Life is complex. There are forces we can't control. The economy, the weather, luck, the actions of others. The deep truth is that we should work hard because it's good for us, because it builds character, and because it gives us the best chance. It's about the effort itself, the journey, as much as the destination. We do our best, and we understand that sometimes, despite our greatest efforts, the world doesn't always deliver the exact reward we expect, and that's okay. The value is in the trying, in the putting forth of your energy, no matter what happens next. Why do we sometimes feel a tight knot in our stomach about money, even when things are okay? It's like an old song stuck in our heads, a feeling that doesn't quite fit the moment but won't leave. These feelings often come from fears that are much, much older than us. They're echoes from a time before credit cards, before even coins or paper bills. Long, long ago, money didn't exist. People needed things like food, warm clothes, and safe shelter. If you didn't have enough, it was a real, immediate danger. Being left out of the group, or not having resources to trade, could mean you wouldn't survive. So, our very old brains learned to pay close attention to having enough. This wasn't just about being comfortable, it was about staying alive. Over thousands of years, human life changed. We invented farms, then villages, then cities. We created systems for trading, and eventually, we invented money to make those trades easier. But here's the thing. Our brains didn't instantly update all their programming. The old alarm system, designed for dangers like hungry animals or empty stomachs, still rings when we see a low bank balance or worry about a future bill. It's still about survival in a way, but the rules are different now. Think of it like this. Your brain is a super advanced computer, but it's running some really old software in the background. This software was written for a time when every berry picked and every animal hide mattered for life itself. Now, you might be deciding if you can afford a new video game or save up for a new bike. Even though it's not truly life or death, that old software can make your brain feel the same ancient squeeze. It makes you feel nervous about spending or worried about running out. It's like when you smell something delicious cooking and your stomach rumbles. Even if you just ate, your body has an old, automatic response. Our ancestors developed strong instincts about resources. These instincts aren't always logical in today's world. They're like reflexes we can't always control. We see something we want, or we fear losing what we have, and that ancient alarm rings inside us. It's not just about greed. It's often about a deep-seated fear of lack, or not being safe, or not being accepted by the group. And here's the secret. Everyone feels this to some extent. It's deeply, truly human. So, when you feel a little weird about money, or you see adults around you worrying, remember that it's often a whisper from the past. It's a leftover feeling, a shadow of ancient needs. Understanding this can help you. It shows you that these feelings are not just you being worried, but a shared human experience stretching back through countless generations. And that's why it matters. Knowing where these feelings come from can help us look at them differently. We can acknowledge the old fear, but then ask ourselves, is this fear still useful for me now? It's about being aware and choosing how to move forward, instead of letting ancient echoes completely run the show.